All right, peace to the family out there. Shout out to everybody who's been waiting. Thank you for your patience. As usual, it's gonna have a wonderful show tonight, family. Got a new guest on tonight, and y'all gonna be happy with this one tonight. This is a Wednesday night, so this is wow. I don't know what planets govern Wednesday night, but this one is gonna be a real good one. I want everybody to hit the like button. Make sure you hit the like button. That's important for the algorithm. Tell your friends and family that we are live and that we're actually talking about something extremely important. Dimensionally limited avatars, the term that Robert Grant came up with. But before we get started, let's get to a few commercials. I want everybody to get settled in. We're gonna get to about two commercials, then we'll be right back, and I'm gonna introduce my guests. Be right back in 1 minute, family. This is a gather. 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 This is a gather of the masses. This is a gather. 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 This is a gather of the masses. This is a gather. 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 This is a gather of the masses.
Hey family, on Sunday, October 13th, I am celebrating 29 years in promotion and production at the new Black Wall Street Mall with tribute to Dick Gregory. That's right, celebrating 29 years, so text that number to get more information. Remember, Baba Ashra Kwesi and Mirror Kwesi will be closing out the evening with a salute by Dr. B. Sirius, Brother Rich, Red Pill and Blue Pill, Lorenzo Sanford, Sister Golda X, Sister Tassili Ma'at, and so much more. Make sure you go to linktree/King Simon the Numerator or scan the QR code.
Okay. And without further ado, let me put my camera back on. Without further ado, I want to welcome to the platform Robert Edward Grant. Welcome to the platform.
Hey, how you doing? Good to be here with you.
Hey, I'm doing great. I was just telling Robert, y'all, he was actually scheduled to be on my platform in 2020, and COVID kind of shut things down, and it didn't happen. But I continue to watch a lot of his stuff. Thoroughly impressed. I want y'all to check out his Instagram, his YouTube. Thoroughly impressed with the information that he disseminates. So I knew one day I would have to get him on soon. And I guess today's the day. September 25th, 2024 is the day. Robert, welcome to the platform, my brother.
Thank you. Great to be here with you.
Hey,
Super excited.
Indeed. So I named tonight's transmission is actually influenced by something I hear you say continuously on podcasts. And you use the term dimensionally limited avatars. And I love when you use that. You use that to describe our experience down here in this realm. So let me just tell the people, because you knew a little bit about you, and then we could get started. Listen, man, Robert, he's a successful entrepreneur. He's a best-selling author. He's the founder of several corporate enterprises. He got a television series on Gaia. He's an artist. I hear him talking about music all the time. He knows how to relate music to spirituality. He's just, amazing. Codex, he's the host of Codex, an original TV series, so you can check that out. I think that's on Amazon Prime and Gaia. But I think your books is Polymath and Philomath, right?
Philomath,
Philomath, yeah. So with that being said, man, you do a lot. You do a lot, Robert. You do a lot. I don't know how you able to do all this in this one short lifetime, but congrats on all your success. And tell the people a little bit about how you came up with this term, dimensionally limited avatar, throughout all your things that you experienced.
So a few months ago, I had been dreaming while I was asleep, and I had this big revelation almost that I had to wake up and write this whole thing down as a stream of consciousness that I started to receive or get in.
Right.
And one of the first things that came out of it was the 24 principles or precepts of universal mind. Mm-hmm. And the 24 precepts of universal mind starts off informing us that we are dimensionally limited avatars in a self-simulation that is a spiritual life simulation game. Mm-hmm. And this simulation game is intended for us to raise our consciousness, to learn how to overcome and transcend duality, with the backdrop being duality, and learn how to fall in love with the world around us so that we can decide to express love instead of be right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about all the wars in the world and everything that happened, you got two sides that think they're both right, and then they fight to the death,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The higher consciousness is to recognize that there's not an objective right
Mm-hmm.
and wrong. It's not as simple as that. It is more nuanced than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only way for the one to be able to perceive itself and be able to see its own conditioning biases is to divide itself and place a mirror in between those two aspects, the subconscious mind and the conscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is very Carl Jungian in its approach. Also very much in line with people like Alan Watts in Buddhism and Taoist approaches, but you can find elements of this in Sufism and across all different religions and spiritual schools of thought, that we are in a spiritual life simulation game, learning how to love and be loved.
Indeed. So I heard you say before that this prism is a mirror of consciousness. And I also heard people say that a lot of spiritual teachers say that this world is a shadow world of higher dimensions. So in terms of, I'm just curious, Robert, in terms of, like, let's say Robert Edward Grant walks into a room, right? He walks into this room. You cast the shadow's behind you. The shadow, like you see my hand up there, and the wall's white, so you can see my shadow. So there's a shadow behind Edward Grant, but there's also a mirror in front of Edward Grant, so you can see, you can see your avatar in front of you. So you have a shadow behind you and an avatar in front of you that's reflected through the mirror. With the shadow or the image in the mirror, what do you think is more of a reflection of your true being spiritually, that shadow or that mirror? Because I hear you say the darkness is absorption of light and the light is the reflection of light. So do you think one is a better representation of who you truly are on a spiritual level?
I think the only way to have me be on a spiritual level, who I truly am, would be the combination of both.
Right.
It's the synthesis of both.
Yeah.
So this is the nature of it, right? Because an eye can't see itself without the aid of a mirror. A fire can't burn itself, and a light cannot illumine itself, and a tooth can't bite itself. How could a tooth bite itself? It can't. So consciousness cannot perceive itself unless it divides itself and creates a mirror separation between the two.
Right.
That means by its own definition, it cannot be whole in each one. Each one is only a part of a whole. This is the nature of this dualistic existence. And that realizing that I may think that the only things I project, I'll give you a tangible example of this. So let's say that I'm a very arrogant person. Arrogance will always attract arrogance as a function of its sympathetic resonance. So piousness will attract piousness. Love attracts love.
Right.
So in that context, then if I am very arrogant, I can't see that I am arrogant. And I just judge it in the world around me, all around me.
Interesting.
There's an old saying we have: if you spot it, that means you got it.
Yeah.
The people that complain about other people being arrogant are usually the most arrogant. They just can't see it in themselves. That's the thing. But everyone else can, because they're not separated by this mirror in the same way. You just can't see yourself because an eye can't see itself. You can't see the mote in your own eye. And this is why in the Bible, it says, Jesus says there are two great commandments: love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, might, mind, and strength, and love thy neighbor as thyself, and judge not, lest you be judged with the same judgment you cast. In this world, the key learning is that what we are fighting and what we are judging against in the world around us is actually the things we don't like about ourselves that we do not want to be aware of. And we try to deflect that onto others by projecting it into the world around us. And the world becomes something we think is totally separate from us, but actually it's just a U inverse of our perception. It's the mirror.
So Robert, so you said, you talked about you spot it, you got it. What I want to ask you, Robert, and that's very interesting. I've heard people say that, if I'm able to spot a criminal, then I must have some type of criminal element within me, because I know I'm good at spotting criminals. What I want to ask you though is that kind of, when I think of somebody who I'm extremely intuitive, Robert. So I'll look at it like this, like Robert. I look at it like this, like say if somebody, like we're light bodies. Another word for light is information. Uh,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
if we have a book, I don't have a book in front of me. There's information in that book. So I look at it like if I'm intuitive and I'm able to read the book called Robert Edward Grant, your light information. I'm able to read that information. Does that necessarily mean? And let's say you are a swindler, or let's say you're into activities like just crazy stuff. Does that, if I'm intuitive, does that mean I have it? Or maybe I just have the gift of reading the information, the invisible information that's in the book called Robert Edward Grant.
Or maybe you start looking at it slightly differently and saying, okay, why is Robert Edward Grant coming into my existence?
Yes.
It's something related to me, because I wouldn't come into your existence unless you had some frequency that was related to me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? So like attracts like. It's a function of parasympathetic resonance. So you look at me as something separate from you, but actually I'm just an aspect of you.
Mm-hmm.
So let me put it to you this way. So let's say that the level of your consciousness is very, very low,
mm-hmm.
and you think the world around you is entirely separate.
Mm-hmm.
The people that will come into your world may pick on you. They might bully you. They may treat you badly. They may dump you. They may cheat on you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the way you see yourself. And they're mirroring back to you in that world how you actually see yourself and what you believe you deserve at a subconscious level. Like you think you're not worthy. I'm going to be treated like shit because I'm not good enough. So therefore, I'm always going to get dumped and cheated on by my girlfriends.
Right. Right.
You see what I'm saying?
That wouldn't make sense, Robert, because everybody gets a different version of you. Is that not totally different?
So then let's say, so then why? Okay, so let's extend this same principle then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's not separate. It's not different from what we just said.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that you're surrounded by assholes.
Yes.
It's because you're an asshole.
Oh man. Oh man. Oh man.
Assholes will always be surrounded by assholes.
This
is what I'm trying to say. It's not separate from you. It's the thing that you deny in yourself, the asshole nature that you have, that then is reflecting in the people around you becoming assholes all the time.
But let me
you attract everything you judge.
Oh, yeah, that's it. You answered my question without me asking. There you go. You attract what you judge.
Do you see what I'm saying?
There you go.
You attract everything you judge. So then oh shit. That means that I'm not separate from everyone around me. That's right. So then if you've got like goddesses and wonderful people showing up in your world, that's because it's representing a change within you.
Indeed.
That is attracting that resonance.
Yeah.
Because a hammer has a job, and that job is to seek a nail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when you have conditioning bias and you think you're a victim, you will continue to attract victimhood over and over and over and over again until you no longer judge negatively being victimized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You just
learn in this world through opposites.
Indeed. You just made me think of something, Robert. That I was like, because there's several things I got to run by you, because I love how you explain things and I love how you analyze things, and I just need to get your opinion about certain things or certain ideas or questions I may have. When you said victim, you made me think about the opposite victor, and this is the question I have for you, Robert. All right, okay, so check it out. So this is something that I'm like, is this a possibility? You know how you just thinking and shit come in your mind. You're like, wait a minute, is this a possibility? So I'm like, Robert, this is what I was thinking, Robert. I'm like, the friends that you have when you're young, let's say your best friend when you was very, very young.
Mm-hmm.
My best friend's name was Victor, and and a couple other names. Let me just stick to Victor for now. I had the idea. I said, what if the frequency of your best friend's name when you was young was a preview of a theme you was going to explore later on in life? So like my best friend's name was Victor. So I'm like, maybe being victorious was something I was going to explore later on with life. And this was a preview of that. So I said, let me try this. You know what I did, Robert? I said, let me try this. I said, first person to ask was my lady. I said, baby, what was your best friend's name? She said, Octavia. I said, Octavia. I got my phone. I said, let me look up Octavia. Looked up Octavia. It said Octavia is feminine for the number 8. I said, oh shit, I'm a number 8. everybody keeps telling me I'm a number 8. Like King Simon the numerology. I was born on September 17th, so 8 plays a big role. The personality, the energy of a number 8 plays a big role in my life. I said, baby, I think your best friend was named Octavia, was a number 8, and you met a number 8. I'm the father of your children. You've been with me for 18, 19 years. Wow, this is amazing. Then I asked another friend, I'm not going to say their name, and it was I got the same results. So I said, I got to ask Robert this. What you think about that idea, Robert? The people you meet early in life, their names might be a preview of themes you explore later on in life.
Yeah, not just the people you meet, but your own name.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
Your own name is full of codes. You don't even realize it, and you can look it up in gematria, and you can find out your name in gematria in numerical form. All of this nothing is left to chance. Every person you meet, every circumstance you encounter, every experience you have is a divine manifestation of your divine will in your higher self capacity. Everything was chosen.
Right.
The universe doesn't happen to us. It happens for and through us. And when you finally realize that, then it's like, wait a minute. So I'm the producer. I'm the actor. I'm not just an actor on someone else's play.
Right.
I'm the freaking producer. I'm the playwright. I'm the everything. Yeah. You are on a real-time basis. It was all selected and chosen by you in your higher self capacity. What we call destiny is really just the free will of your higher self.
Yeah. That's something.
So this idea that every person you meet, her number is 8. I'll give you an example for me, right? I discovered the Alpha Omega inside the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, right? And when I discovered it, there was the Alpha Omega on the rim. And of course, I was going to left brain the shit out of that thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I was going to go nuts on the analysis. It turned out to be 5.6 inches wide, which 5.6, it's 5.605 actually inches wide. And you square that and it's pi times 10. And the room's perimeter is pi times 10 in meters. So that was a mind bender because I'm like, but did they use inches? Well, yeah, it turns out they did. And did they also use meters? It took me more analysis to find out that, in fact, they did use meters as well. Was the pyramid built in the future? Why is it that it's literally on a latitude that is exactly the speed of light? And the word pyramid means the mid or mean of light.
Yeah, interesting.
Fire in the middle, right? Come on. And then the other axis, there was no longitude and latitude when they built the pyramid. How the heck did they know that it was going to be exactly 29.9792458? 9 digits accurate. That's like picking a bicycle lock with 9 numbers on it.
Yeah.
And nailing it. Come on.
And nailing it. Yeah.
Right. And not only that, but the other axis, the longitude is 1 over pi. 31 degrees, 8 minutes, and 3 seconds. That's exactly 1 over pi. Seriously. And then when you look at that, which is in decimal representation, 31 degrees, 0.1342, 31.1342, divided by 360 degrees equals the number of seconds in a day. It's 0.0864, 86,400. So wait, on one axis we have light speed, and on the other axis we have time. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
This isn't real. The universe is mental. The all is mind. The all is mental. This whole illusion, this elaborate illusion that we're living, is intended to wake us up at exactly the right time when we're supposed to wake up. So this is like that scene, you know, I hate to use the example of P. Diddy because P. Diddy's kind of been in trouble a little bit lately, right?
Right.
But there is one scene that was really funny in the movie, Get Me to the Greek, right? And he's talking to, I think it's Jonah Hill, and he goes, are you mind fucking me right now? And he goes, I'm mind fucking you right now. Right? It's like the funniest thing.
I know what you're talking about.
Right. Well, I think he's gonna have a lot of time to say that to himself in jail, probably. But anyway, or at least to his cellmate. The point is that we are in this matrix, and the only real limitations in this matrix are the things we believe. We're not oppressed by someone. We created it all ourselves. That's the funny paradox of it all. We're not in an escape room that has to be escaped by finding some code. What you find when you finally understand the code is that the whole game is intended to help us see that the way that you transcend this world is by falling in love with it just as it is, without judging it. You want to see change in the world? Then be the change that you want to see in the world.
Let me ask you this, Robert, since you mentioned P. Diddy, just a real quick question, and I'm going to make it a spiritual question. As mad as we might get at some of that, horrible acts we heard P. Diddy get, Source created this universe to experience itself, to have a subjective experience of itself, because it's all that is. It needs good and bad characters. It uses polarity. So when P. Diddy leaves this realm, is Source really mad at P. Diddy? Like we may be mad, or Source like, I needed to learn that perspective because there's so many perspectives. I needed to learn the perspective of P. Diddy. You fulfilled your role. You was the bad guy in the movie. Like Denzel was a bad guy in Training Day. We didn't like it, but he played a hell of a bad guy. So is P. Diddy the bad guy that Source is proud of? And after he leaves, it's like, all right, you did a good job. All right, you did a good job. That was because it looks at it like a movie, but we're looking at it like real life. So are we looking at it wrong? And is Source not going to be mad at P. Diddy for what he's done?
I think at the end of the day, it's like, just you gave a good example of Denzel Washington, right?
Right. Yeah.
There's a good play that was on Broadway for a long time. Whoops, I lose you?
No, you're on the full screen. You good?
Okay. So there's a good play, and it was called Phantom of the Opera. And so Phantom of the Opera is supposed to be kind of the villain in the show, right? He's the villain. And at the very end, who gets the standing ovation? The villain gets the standing ovation. Because it's the contrast that shows us the beauty of the light.
Yeah.
If we lived in a world with only white light, that'd be kind of boring, man. You wouldn't have the full spectrum of color. You wouldn't have all the gradations of experience. You wouldn't have all the texture that we all experience.
Yeah.
So we live in a world that requires the darkness. The darkness and the light need each other. You can have, it's like Lord of the Rings, Gandalf the Gray dies and comes back Gandalf the White. And just as he comes back as Gandalf the White, then the orc army gets deployed, right? It's like the darkness gets really dark, but the light got really light. In order to have that, I buy a diamond at a store. I want to put it right in front of a black velvet cloth so that all of that shining brilliance will show up perfectly in front of that cloth because of the backdrop. We're in a play of our own minds, and there is no objective truth. There's only, and you can't even get into, if 30 people saw the same crime outside, they would all have different stories of what happened.
Yeah, you're right.
Because we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are.
But Robert, keeping that in mind, and you study in ancient history going back thousands of years, Egypt, Atlantis, all of this stuff. If me and you, Robert, got into an argument today on the live, there would be 100 different versions of what happened and what transpired. So could you imagine? And that's within a week, hundreds of different versions. So could you imagine studying something that happened 50,000 years ago? How many different versions there are studying that? Like, shit, that's some hard shit to do, Robert. That's real hard, man. Real hard.
Bro, it's impossibly difficult. So all history then becomes entirely subjective. Yeah. And even look, like you could have two people that are twin brothers or twin sisters, have the exact same experience, and then have an entirely different experience as a result of it.
Yeah.
So one person could say, oh, this happened, it was terrible. The other person would say, that was the best thing that ever happened, because if I'd gone this other place, then this bad thing could have happened to me.
Yeah.
It's all entirely subjective. But then I could even say, what if the same person had the exact same experience, but the same person in two different timelines of reality? One person said, oh, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And then the same person would say, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. How could you have such a circumstance? It happens every day like that. It's happened to me like that. Something that I thought was the worst thing that ever happened to me, a few months later, I realized was the best thing that ever could have happened to me.
Indeed.
We all have had that experience.
Plenty of times I've had that. Yeah.
I have a friend who lost his father, not long ago. And he's like, that was the worst day of my life. But now, as he looks back on it, because of all the benefits that came as a result of losing his father and how he had to learn his own resilience and how he had to basically cut out on his own and start his own company as a result of it, that company then took off and became this huge overnight success. all because he lost his father,
Mhm.
and that inspired him not to live a mediocre life anymore.
Mm. And that's an amazing way to look at it, because you would think, okay, the past, present, future, I could change the future. But when you describe it like that, you could change your past. And that's something we haven't been taught, the ability to change our past. We could change our past just like we could alter our future. It's so amazing shit when you look at it like that, man. For real.
That's exactly right. No, seriously, start looking at your past and look at all the benefit of that past. And as soon as you do and you transmute that, then you'll start living the bright future that you need to live. That's
Mm,
how you let go of those past traumas.
mm, mm.
Recognize that everything happened by divine will, and that will was your own will.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Amazing. Let me ask you this, Robert, because you're big on numbers, like you're big on numbers and geometry and sacred geometry, and you be dropping some science, and I'll be like, whoa, I got to talk to this dude about. I got a couple of questions about sacred geometry, but I want to ask you this first. All right, so we're studying all these ancient religions, let's say Sumeria, Kemet, American, Asian, so many different cultures, and they have these the names of the gods are described using words. As a math man, as a polymath, as a somebody that's in the geometry, do you think ancient civilizations, the same way we use gods, and I may say Inky or Enlil and Tahuti and Jesus, do you think they use numbers to describe their God, and they prayed to these numbers the same way we use names and we pray to these names?
I think that's part of it. Absolutely. I think that the number one is, I think, the entire universe. The one divides itself into the many simply for the joy of becoming one again. And in the meantime, for the joy of perceiving itself through everybody's unique eyes of perception, that there's never been another you. There will never be another you. There's never been another me, and there will never be another me. Exactly.
Yeah.
So each one of us has literally all the information of our division of the number one within us.
Mm-hmm.
We are all divisions of the number one. That means we're all God.
Mm-hmm.
The entire universe is God, even the darkness and the light together.
Mm-hmm.
The combination, the wholeness of the two. That's what holy actually is a reference to.
Mm-hmm.
Holiness is to be whole. And that means you're combined. It's that same thing you said. Are we more represented by one side of the reflection versus the absorption? Or are we more the absorption versus the reflection? We're both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The divided light is the illusion. So yes, we all have numbers. Every one of us has numbers, and those numbers are all divine because they're all partitions of that number one.
Mm-hmm.
And you could say, that 12 has a certain property and 7 has another property associated with it that has a divine aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
618 is a golden number, the golden signature. And we see that everywhere. And 1618
Mm-hmm.
is beautiful. And we see that everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The math constants, they also have certain properties. They have like colors and lives and personalities to me.
Mm-hmm.
Numbers actually have personalities for me.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Okay, there you go, Robert. All right. They have personality. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I just saw an ad on here for while it was in between the break, and it was for King Simon.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's one of my buddies, right?
Yeah.
I love King Simon. And he's big time into numerology. He's the numerologist extraordinaire. And the first time I met him, like he'd already read my books and stuff. I was like kind of blown away. It was at Billy's house.
Yeah.
I met him at Billy's house. And then he also emceed for us at the Conscious Awards that I was at. And, I love Billy. And he's introduced me to some amazing people, including you. So the point is that, yes, numbers have certain properties. Even their shapes determine what their symbolism is.
Mm-hmm.
So have you ever thought that certain numbers look like other numbers that are the same in certain properties? So for example, the mirror would be the reciprocal relationship of something,
Mm-hmm.
the inverted relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
5 has a mirror of 1/5.
Mm-hmm.
So then how does that represent in the mirror across this mirror? So 1/5 is what? It's 0.2. Is it a coincidence that 2 is an upside down backwards 5?
Never thought about that. You onto something. You onto something. I never thought about that. Okay.
And what other numbers have that kind of property? How about 4 and 7? They're pretty close, right? They look kind of similar. So 4 and 7 have a similar property like that. Well, 1 over 4 is 0.25, and 2 plus 5 equals 7. See what I'm saying? So literally, you've got mirror relationships of 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1. That's the binary expansion code right there. 1 doubles to 2, 2 doubles to 4, 4 doubles to 8, 8 doubles to 16, which then becomes 7. 16 doubles to 32, then becomes 5. 32 doubles to 64, then becomes 1. 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. That's why 7, the number 7, has this pattern of periodicity or repetition, which is those exact same numbers, just in a different order. It's 0.142857, 142857, 142857. It's the same thing as the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1. Same numbers, just in a different order. Every other number, right? So you start to realize, okay, then 7 has the property of something related to the triplet of 1, 4, and 7, and 2, 5, and 8. 2, 5, and 8 is related to electromagnetism. 1, 4, and 7 is gravity.
1, 4, 7. Huh? Okay.
That's right. And 2, 5, 8, 2.58 3, which would be 2.58285, again, ends up becoming, squaring that, becomes the gravitational constant of 6.67408.
Man, okay.
And 2.58 is what's called the quantum Hall effect number.
2.5.
Which is an electromagnetism number. So wait, electromagnetism squared equals gravity? Yeah, it does.
Sheesh, man. Let me show you. Go ahead, Robert.
Yep.
Yeah, this
Go ahead. Show me whatever.
This is good stuff, man. I swear this is great stuff. I'm glad to finally interview you. Let me show you something. All right, so this is I seen this on the internet when I was preparing for my interview with you, and this is something that I guess you wrote. And I seen you on Instagram. You said geometry is the music we experience with our eyes. Music is the geometry we experience with our ears.
Yep.
Profound. I remember when I first seen you write that on Instagram, and then I seen this while I was getting ready for the interview, and I said I want to ask him a question. So this is what I want to ask you, Robert. Because you're talking about the eyes and the ears, how we take light with both of them. All right. So if geometry is the music we experience with our eyes, Robert, and music is the geometry we experience with our ears, is it safe to say that dance is the geometry we experience with our heart?
That's interesting.
We feel that.
Yeah.
We feel
I feel you, bro.
Give me your thoughts. Come on. I need to know these thoughts, man. These geometrical thoughts, man.
I think that's beautiful. That's pretty damn beautiful, I have to say. I really do think so. That's kind of cool. Dance is the music we experience with the heart. I love that.
I mean, it's beautiful how we can experience geometry. It's real beautiful.
It really is. It's so true how we can experience it, and we tend to see it in a limited way, and it's not limited at all.
Yeah, no, definitely. But you know, something you said, and I just want to touch on this because I don't want to forget. You said geometry is, and I do quite interesting. And this is why I wrote it down. Very interesting. You said geometry is like a QR code
for the subconscious mind. Yep,
for the mind. Yeah. You said, and when we see them, it downloads a ton of information for us that we can have access to and brought to the surface. I said, whoa. I said, when you use a modern example like a QR code, I said that's it right there. That's it right there. So I wanted to show you that, and something else I want to show you. Because the people are gonna appreciate it when something I want to show you. All right. So Robert, ancient symbol stolen by a man we know named Hitler, abused and misused and misappropriated by Hitler. But in many cultures, Tibet, many cultures, I see many cultures of the world utilize this symbol. what I want to ask you, Robert, if we're talking about sacred geometry and we're talking about it being downloaded to our subconscious mind, this is one of the most banned symbols. This is one of the most symbols that you better not be caught anywhere with this anywhere. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a little different from what he did, but if don't get caught anywhere near this symbol. But my question is, if he took it from an ancient culture and this is some type form of sacred technology and sacred geometry is like a QR code that we could download to our subconscious mind. What do you think is contained in this symbol, Robert, that we're not tapping into because of this monster named Hitler?
I think that symbol is something that we see in Sanskrit. We see it in Buddhism. It's imprinted on the side of Mount Kailash.
Yeah.
And that symbol represents this rotation and wheel of life and the torsion of life and how we go and how change becomes the only constant.
Yes.
And this rotation is not dissimilar from what we're experiencing when we look at things like the Merkaba. You know, all of these symbologies anciently have deep esoteric meaning around the polarities of life and how life is separated into these different four polarities. So there's negative, there's positive on top of negative, there's negative on top of positive, and then there's positive, right? These are the polarities that are basically described by Walter Russell in his cosmology in a book called The Universal One, which I highly recommend. So this symbology of this vortex of life and experience is very profound. And I think these are things that we meditate on. We can take in through our subconscious mind, their meaning and depth by trying to study and understand what they might mean.
Yeah.
Just like geometric forms. Geometric forms, you know, you look at this geometry that's sitting here on my desk right here.
Oh, let me see all that.
It's kind of a trip, right?
Let me put that on. Yep. Good.
Yeah. Just by looking at this, it changes your awareness. It changes your consciousness. Because now you're going to start to learn, okay, what is this shape actually meaning? And this shape is a reference to the spirit and to fire and the holy and divine aspect of our universe.
Yeah.
Kepler believed that was the shape and structure of the universe. That also happens to have all the power within it to do things like the nuclear bomb. The atomic bomb in the movie Oppenheimer, if you saw that, was constructed in a dodecahedral shape, exactly like that.
Yeah. Plato said when you look at the earth from the upside down, it's a dodecahedron also. Yeah. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, because a cube fits exactly right in it.
Yeah.
And earth was always referenced as a cube. So the cube fits perfectly inside the dodecahedron.
So since we're talking about sacred geometry and, you know, shapes, in terms of, let's say, you know, all right, we're into this new age thing, right, Robert? And we are let's say we're very positive and we're like we're creators, we're not victims of reality. So when we talk about things that traditional religion use, like let's say prayer and getting on our knees, a lot of people associate getting on your knees with begging. So they say, I ain't get on my knees no more to pray and beg. I am the greatest, I'm the best. And they say affirmations, this and that and that and that. So I'm not getting on my knees no more. That's a form of begging. That's a form of religion. I'm not doing that no more. What I want to ask you, and that may be true. That may be true. Two things can be true at the same time and oppose each other. That may be true. But what I want to ask you is, when we get on our knees and pray, Robert, and we on our knees, even if we're getting on our knees to propose for marriage, is that a form of sacred geometry? Because you got that angle, that 90-degree angle. Is that a form of sacred geometry that we used to tap into that maybe we forgot about? So we just think that it's something that is not. But do you look at that? Can that be a form of sacred geometry that makes things manifest faster when we get down on our knees and our body forms that 90-degree angle, Robert?
No.
Talk to me.
I'm kidding. No, you're definitely leading the witness on that one. Yes, absolutely correct. I mean, look, the reason why we bring our right arms to a square, I'll try to get it in the screen here, right? We bring our right arms to a square and we're supposed to swear on the Bible, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole thing.
Yeah.
and you have the thumb extended. The reason for this is the vertical line represents the line to heaven.
Yeah.
The horizontal line represents the line of the earth.
Yeah.
Where those two meet becomes the right angled point, and that creates a box that is the altar.
Mm.
Right? It's like a little cube or a box.
Yeah.
And that altar is the altar that is representation of where heaven meets earth.
Right.
And that little box becomes like an ark of the covenant as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this notion of where heaven meets earth, wherever we make these rigid lines, we're turning our bodies into right triangles,
Mm-hmm.
then yes, we are doing a body mudra. You have hand mudras and there are body mudras.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the body mudra, just like kneeling down and creating that shape of your body, that is symbolic. In the Mormon church, that's what they do. They kneel down in a Mormon temple and they make their body straight and they kneel their legs. And so they've got the shape of a right triangle again. Same thing.
Yeah.
And these proportions all have deep significance and meaning.
Indeed. Wow. So don't abandon the getting on the knee, huh, Robert? Don't abandon it.
No, don't abandon getting on the knees.
Not yet. Once again, shout out to the people in the chat. I see a couple of trolls, but shout out to everybody. We got about 2,000 people in the chat, so I'm gonna give a shout out to everybody who's learning tonight. What I want to ask you, Robert, because the name of the show once again is Dimensionally Limited Avatars, and I've heard you mention that several times, and I was like, ooh, when I do a show with Robert, I gotta name it that. So I want to ask you, avatars are limited, and we're trying to figure out how to utilize it and the technology of it. I want to ask you about something that they call demonic possession. And when you see movies like the Poltergeist and all that, they're possessed by demons. They do all types of supernatural shit, Robert. They're like, they jump up and down. They on the wall. They doing all. They're strong. Why is it that if you're possessed by an entity, Robin, why does this entity know how to use your avatar better than you know how to use your avatar? And that entity's not even in this realm, Robert.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true. But I don't quite understand your question. So what's your question?
All right. So let's say no, I don't want to use me as let's say John is in the room. John can only lift 100 pounds. He tries his best to lift 100 pounds. But let's say John gets possessed. He has this, for whatever reason, he's susceptible to possession. Now that he's possessed, John can lift 300 pounds. And he's possessed by something that's not his original, his organic personality. So we're like, how the hell does John lift 300 pounds under possession when he's not under possession? He swears to God that he could only lift 100 pounds. So whatever possessed him is able to utilize his avatar better than he is when he's not under possession.
Ah, okay. So it's because of belief. So you probably heard the statement, if you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right.
Yeah.
So when he's under possession, he believes that he's under possession fully. Right. And then as such, he has like superhuman strength. We all are much stronger and much more capable than we believe. The only limitations we face in this world, our consciousness can only expand to the volume of the cage of our belief systems.
Right.
Consciousness can only expand to the volume of the cage of your belief system. So whatever you believe is going to be the reality that you experience. And if you think that, okay, well, I asked for Santa Claus to give me a new bicycle when I was 5 years old, he never showed up. Woe is me. Then maybe the fear that you had that he wouldn't show up with a bicycle is actually what led to the outcome. Whatever is stronger as an emotional state, the way you manifest something is by becoming the resonance of the thing that you want to manifest. Right. Once you become the resonance of that thing, you have to embed it by having the emotional state in accordance with that resonance as well. So you have to feel happy for having already gotten it, for having already achieved it.
Oh, yeah.
And this is how you do it. If you have fear that's like, I'm not sure he's going to do it, or you're worried that it's not going to happen or work out, then all of a sudden it's just not going to work out. That's life.
Right. Indeed.
So again, it's exactly tied to the, if you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right. If the you spot it means you got it. If you smelt it, you dealt it. It's the same thing. All the things that we call out in the people around us are what we're going to continue to experience, because they're all aspects of ourselves that are dying to be recognized and seen and accepted. So we learn through opposites. Let me explain what I mean by this.
Yes.
So if I have chosen on my menu of life experiences to learn unconditional love, then the thing I'm going to continue to experience over and over and over again in this lifetime is, guess what? The opposite of unconditional love. What is that? The opposite of unconditional love is betrayal. I'm going to continue to experience betrayal over and over and over again in increasing intensity until I stop judging betrayal negatively. The moment I finally stop judging betrayal negatively and learn to accept it, then I no longer need to learn more through experiencing betrayal. I have then understood what unconditional love is, because unconditional love needs to be without condition. So if I'm still judging betrayal, then I've not yet achieved unconditional love.
Right.
And this is true with everything. If you're looking for a relationship because you're afraid of abandonment, you will continue to face abandonment. If you're looking for public acceptance and recognition when you keep facing victimization, you will continue to face victimization because you judge victimization. The universe is telling you need to continue to learn more about victimization until you finally accept it and then say, damn, okay, I don't need to learn that anymore. I got it. The universe is not separate from you. It is you. It's entirely you. It's not a universe. It's a you inverse. And you have a lot more control over it than you think. A lot more. And people say to me all the time, they're like, well, that's nice, Robert. You're coming from a place of privilege. No, I wasn't. I grew up in a poor house. I paid for all of my own college. Sure, I had advantages, but I was a mixed race kid in Louisiana. And I could tell you that it wasn't easy to be part Asian in Louisiana. It just wasn't. And then I ended up getting bused to an all-black school. And I got my ass royally kicked on the first day I went there.
The first day?
The first day.
What happened, man?
Well, I was only 6 years old. And this was deep South, man. We lived close to the freaking Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan down the street.
Oh, man.
It was a crazy time. And this is the early 70s.
Yeah.
And there was a kid in front of me who had the coolest afro I'd ever seen in my life.
Robert, don't say you touched his afro. Robert, don't say it.
I did it.
No, Robert. Oh, Robert.
I did it. What can I say? I was like, that's the coolest look. I was like, why can't I have hair like that?
You went for it.
I went for it. Well, it was like, come on, this is back in the days when Fat Albert was a show that was like a big thing, right?
Right.
And there was a kid on there that had this gigantic afro, and this kid in front of me at 6 years old had a huge afro. And I was like, man, I want my hair to be like that. And so I went to touch it. I got my ass kicked. And let me tell you something. That wasn't fun. And I never had anything like given to me on a free platter. My father used to say to me, son, nothing in this world is free. Not even freedom is free.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I had to learn this stuff on my own. I didn't, all the stuff I did in work and life and business and everything was all stuff I did. It was funny because when I turned 40, I was starting to give speeches at universities for their commencements and stuff like that. So this is like 15 years ago. And my mother came to one of the things that I was awarded. I got Man of the Year from UCI, University of California, Irvine, from the engineering school. And so my mom gave me a hug and she's like, son, you've accomplished so much more than I ever thought you would. I'm like, is that a compliment? Like an insult that's a compliment?
A compliment. Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. Oh,
she's like, you don't have to do anything anymore. And I was like, wait a minute, Mom. Who are you and where are you hiding my mother? This is the same mom who said to me, oh, if you got all A's instead of 1 A-, then I'd really love you when I was like in third grade. So I had one of these like totally tiger type situations, but they wanted me to come out of and succeed and be out of poverty. My brother was he's since become quite successful, but he always believed that life was difficult and against him. And he experienced that for the first half of his life pretty brutally. And then finally, he came out of that malaise and saw that he could actually control his life and make something of his life. Indeed. And, you know, I that's why I love Billy so much. You know, Billy, when I got COVID, Billy was the only person who called me during my COVID every freaking day. I was like, bro, you don't need to keep calling me. I mean, I didn't have like symptoms at all, but it was when COVID was still really serious. Yeah. That's why I didn't do the podcast with you.
Yeah.
But like, it told me a lot about who my true friends were. And that's when Billy and I like really, I was like, damn, this guy is like legit. And he was never about victimhood. So he asked me to write, you know, some words. I wrote the foreword in his latest book, the Holographic Universe book. And he asked me to write like an endorsement for his book on woke don't mean broke. Right. And so I did. And I read the book. And I was like, damn, it's a huge book.
Yeah, it is.
I was like, damn, Billy, you've like done so many damn things. Yeah. He has. He's done so many damn things. And I'm like, don't tell me you're probably this kid that was selling lemonade and turned it into like a freaking McDonald's stand or something, you know, and that's exactly who he is. He is 100% authentic to who he is.
Indeed.
And he don't take no shit. And I really love this. I super respect this guy. And because he is an inspiration to me. I went to his wedding. I was one of only a very small number of people that went to his wedding.
I seen
in Bora Bora.
Yeah, I seen you in. I seen. Yeah.
And it's because that's how much respect I have. But it doesn't matter that he is black and I'm white. He's my brother from another mother. And I would do anything for that guy. So the point is that we all have a different deck of cards that we're dealt in life. What we do with that deck of cards is our choice. So, and it comes down to our belief system. If you think that you got to be possessed in order to be able to bench press 300 pounds, then figure out that possession. You know, it's like this. Beyonce talks about this all the time. She had a hard time with stage fright.
Sasha Fierce.
So she would possess herself with a different persona of Sasha Fierce.
I know you knew that, Robert. I know you knew that. Sasha Fierce. Oh, man. Yeah. Ain't that interesting? That's some interesting stuff there, man.
So start using these things to be able to benefit your life in real and tangible ways. Be intentional in your choices. And the most powerful thing is, if you ever feel fear, replace it with gratitude. I've not been able to feel fear and gratitude at the same time. So as soon as I start listing out the things I'm grateful for in life, everything shifts.
And real quick, Robert, interesting. King Simon says Beyonce and Billy are born on the same day. That's pretty. You didn't know that, and you mentioned them back to back. You see how this thing go? There's no coincidences. You see how this thing go, Robert? Man, come on, man. He didn't know. Robert didn't know that, but he did. Like, come on, man.
No, so this is synchronicities are all over the place, right? That's the thing. Yes. Synchronicities are, and once you're in the divine path, then you start seeing the universe talking to you everywhere.
Everywhere.
It shows up everywhere. I mean, like this drawing on my T-shirt, right?
Beautiful.
Let me
put you on the full screen. Hold up, because that's a nice one.
Yeah, this drawing on my T-shirt is one that I made.
That's for sale?
Oh, yeah, you can find it on my website.
Awesome. I'm gonna get it.
But this particular T-shirt was a design that I drew out that I just got as a download, right? On a new way to look at music and time.
Yes.
And this was the musical wave of time, and that's what this was. So it's a heptagon, 7 and 24 within it. So you've got 724. That's 24/7, right? Of time. And all of this stuff came to me because I started seeing synchronicities. And then that created remembrances. And then I would sometimes file patents on it. And I don't file patents so that I can keep people from inventions. I file patents so that I can use my own inventions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've never once asserted a patent against anybody, and nor would I ever. I don't believe in it. So I believe that all the knowledge we get is all stuff that we're just remembering. So when a student's ready, the teacher appears to help him remember.
Oh yeah.
That's the purpose of life for us, is to just remind everybody of who we are and why we're here and our own divinity. You are God.
Hmm. Hmm.
God is not some separate character, some separate guy. It is the universe itself. And it's such a beautiful thing when you can start to recognize that something like 0 to the power of 0, which is nothing to the power of nothing, equals the undivided 1.
Hmm.
So 0 to the power of 0 equals 1.
That's very interesting. Yeah. I
So
would think
think about
zero,
this for a moment.
0 times 0 equals 0. That's what I would think.
Yeah, well, let me show you something. Let me actually, I'm going to share screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to find here now. Can you guys still see this?
Yeah. Okay. Let me put it on a full screen.
Calculator. Okay. So you see the calculator on the screen?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So 0
Mm-hmm.
to the power of 0 equals what? 1.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make sense? Does that make any sense?
No, I don't. I'm until you explain it. I'm. Oh
Well,
man.
you might say, well, anything to the power of 0 equals 1, but this actually is 1. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It actually becomes 1. So I'm going to give it an example. So 0.5 to the power, right, which is just this up arrow thing,
Uh-huh.
of 0.5. Whoops. Whoops. What happened? Okay, it just gave me a different calculator. I don't know why I did that. Okay, but 0.707.
Uh-huh.
So now if I do the same thing, but I'm going to put more zeros in here, 0.05. Right, let's do this over. Okay, 0.05 to the power of 0.05 equals 0.86.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, it's a bigger number than 0.707.
Yeah, I would think it would be smaller, but it's getting bigger.
0.00. Okay, so 0.000005
Don't tell me it's gonna get bigger. No, Robin. Don't tell me it's gonna get bigger. Put 10
to the
0.
power of 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5.
You got 5.
0.999? That's bigger.
How is that? How is it getting bigger? No.
That's what she said. So point 0.0000000000, right? So that's how many zeros? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 5.
Yeah.
To the power of 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 5. Oh, dang it. I don't like the way this calculator works. They changed this on me. I went to Microsoft for some reason from Google.
Yeah.
Okay, so 0.00456789101112 5 to the power of 0.123456789101112 5 equals 0.9999999.
Wow.
So the closer we get to 0 equals 1.
Wow.
How is that possible? And the universe is just the number 1 that gets divided infinitely into all of us and everything. So nothing to the power of nothing equals everything.
Yeah, but oh man, Robert, I gotta ask you this because that is amazing. That display is amazing. I didn't expect it to. I didn't expect that to happen when you was doing that. I mean, the numbers were getting smaller, but it was getting closer to 0. But so that is amazing. But I gotta ask you this, Robert. So, because I'm not in the math as much as you. I'm not in the math as somebody who set the world on fire lately with mathematics and on Joe Rogan. Let's just say Terrence Howard.
Yep, I know Terrence well. He's a friend of mine. He's been in my
And
house a few times, several times, in fact.
so let's say Terrence has a different version of mathematics than you. We say mathematics is the language of the universe, but Terrence mathematics is he's mathing different than Robert is mathing. You're getting results though. Robert is getting results, but Terrence is getting results. Terrence has inventions and this and that. I want to ask you, Robert, because sometimes we argue and we think right or wrong, and we just talked earlier about it. Sometimes it's not about right and wrong. Both parties could be right at the same time and disagree with each other. I want to ask you, Robert, in different ages, the age of Aquarius, we just left the age of Pisces. Do you think each age, the age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces, the age of Virgo, requires different mathematics, different astrology, different numerology, different science, different this, different that, because the age is different, so the configurations is different, so the math is going to be a little different according to each age? Do you think that's how it might work, Robert, or it's the same mathematics throughout all the ages?
I look at it like dimensions.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start off with the first dimension, which is just you have 0 dimension is a dot. The first dimension is a line. So you have an x-axis, right? Just like we were talking about with the earth and heaven, right?
Yeah.
So then you go into the second dimension, you have a y-axis. So then we pop a third dimension into it and have a z-axis. So now you've got a cube. You can see a cube, right? A square becomes a cube. So then you go into the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension. Each time it's another offset of 90 degrees, right? So now you've got what would be the cube, and then becomes a tesseract.
Okay.
Or sometimes referred to as a hypercube in the fourth dimension. The fifth dimension becomes a pentaract, right? In the sixth dimension, it becomes a hexaract. These are all more advanced forms of tesseracts. With each time we go to another dimension, we're getting more knowledge about how to measure volumetrically and surface volumes and everything, right? And this becomes the relationship that's embedded right in mathematics, right from the very beginning, so simplistically and incredibly beautiful. And you can find this pattern just inside of this dimensional shift. And if I had the time, I would show you exactly how this works. And it's based on radius values. So literally the first dimension is measured by a radius of 1. The second dimension is measured by a radius of 2. The third dimension is measured by a radius of 3. And then you have the volumetric relationships and the surface areas being identical for those numbers, for any polygon that fits in that. It's amazing, totally amazing. So literally our dimensions are predetermined. So what it means is this: as we move into higher and lower ages of consciousness,
yes,
we also move into higher and lower understandings of mathematics and patterns associated with them.
Indeed.
Pi is a pattern that we figured out how to ascribe a relationship to a diameter that at one point in time we didn't know what the circumference relationship was to the diameter. And so someone came along a few thousand years ago, Archimedes, and said, it's 22/7. That's the relationship of the circle circumference to the diameter of that circle. But then later on, someone else came along and said, oh, there's a better fraction that's more accurate. It's 355 divided by 113.
Right.
And that gave us 7 decimal digits of accuracy of pi.
Whew.
And then someone else came along. This Indian guy, Ramanujan, came along and figured out an infinite equation for pi. And this is just a few weeks ago, it was announced in Quantum Magazine that they found an even more elegant equation and way to derive through computation pi accurately. So every time we do that, we're pushing the boundary of our perception further out. Our ignorance is going farther and farther out from us. So there's what I know that I know. There's what I know I don't know in the world around me. And then there's a boundary beyond what I don't know. And now this creates a new realm called the I don't know what I don't know.
Oh, man. Jesus Christ.
Right? So there are 3 types of people that make things happen, people that watch things happen, and other people wonder what the hell just happened.
Yeah.
That's that category, right? When you're like kind of in the, I don't even know what I don't know.
Right.
That's just entropy, what we call entropy. And entropy and randomness are words that we use to describe the state of us not being able to perceive the higher pattern from the divine that's there. because everything is patterned. For one pattern to exist in a universe that is supposed to be a sea of randomness implies that the whole thing is patterned, and our perception is limited.
Because we talk about
we are dimensionally limited avatars, as I started off by saying.
We talk. Well, I hear so much, even in Freemasonry, they talk about making order out of chaos. You're saying there is no chaos.
There's only a perception of chaos.
The Masons might be mad at you, Robert. They might be mad at you.
That's okay, man.
They might be mad.
Hey, it's time for this stuff to get out.
Hey,
the truth is, everything is patterned. And so what you're talking about with dimensions, yes, our mathematics has to become more and more advanced as we move into higher dimensions. So what makes sense still, however, in the second dimension is that the second dimension becomes a compression for all the higher order mathematics. Because why? If I take this shape right here, which is a cube octahedron, if I show it to you like this, you're going to see it actually has the shape of a hexagon, right? You see the two-dimensional hexagon right here?
Yeah.
Right. There's a two-dimensional hexagon. So if I cast a shadow on the table, the shape of that shows up on the table is going to be a hexagon. But that also has all the information in it to make a full cube and a cube octahedron and a hypercube and everything else. It's all based in this. So the shadow of the hexagon has all the information for the third dimension embedded within it. And not just the third dimension, but the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension, all higher dimensions are in that one flat hexagon. So the universe has a compression, and that compression is called a shadow. And that compression is super, super efficient. It's not lossy. There's no lossy about it. It's just built into it. Just like the square root of 2 is a infinite number. And its compression is the number 2. Yeah. Because using that number, the square root of 2, you just multiply that and it creates 2. That's your compression. Yeah. The decompressed form of it is the spirit of the number 2, which is the square root of 2. And it goes on forever. Yeah. So in one sense, I understand what Terrence is saying. 1 times 1 equals 2. What I believe he's really trying to say, because I've actually talked to him about this, even at my house, because I tried to convince him, look, dude, I don't think I would lead with that one. It's not the one I would lead with. If I was going to go on Joe Rogan, I'm not going to lead with 1 times 1 equals 2. You've got way too many people in the academic community that are going to be like, yo, that's an easy one to disprove. Right? But that's what he chose to lead with. And he talked about this loop. The phenomenon that he talks about as a looping phenomenon is a very easily explained phenomenon. I explain it. I did 2 videos on this, in fact, about, Terrence's, supposition on these 2 exact issues. And you can find them on my Instagram page from a few months ago, because I was getting inundated with questions about it.
Right.
And so that's why I did it. But I also understand what he's saying in that every number can derive every other number. I just showed you that 0 by itself can derive the number 1. 0 to the power of 0 equals 1. That is true. So from that perspective, although I don't necessarily agree with the approach he took on it, because I think it just got him a lot of blowback and unnecessary blowback. Yeah. And I'm also good friends with Eric Weinstein, who did the debunking on Joe Rogan with him.
I ain't like that.
Yeah, but Eric is a pretty friggin' smart guy. And I could tell you that he wasn't wrong. So what Terrence was basically showing was a different way to look at math. And that to me was a wonderful, beautiful thing. But I can give you umpteen proofs that 1 times 1 does not equal 2. 1 plus 1 does, but 1 times 1 does not. And if it did equal 2, then the entire universe would cease to exist. We couldn't have music, and we could have no sound and no light. Nothing would exist, because the center of a logarithmic progression of both music and sound and light is the square root of 2, being a value of 1.4142. If that is not the case, then how do you go for the other notes inside the octave? Because you take a unison value, let's say it's 1 hertz, And then to get the middle of the next octave is the diminished fifth. And that's 1.4142, the square root of 2 multiplied by the unison value. But in another dimension, is it possible that 1 times 1 might equal 2? And that he just has inadequately proven it? He's not been able to prove it? That is possible. Although, in this dimension, in order for all the higher math to work in all higher dimension, the lower math also has to work. As I just said, the shadow has to be able to reconstruct all the higher dimensional aspects of the polytopes and polyhedra that would be associated with that. So I commend Terrence, because I really like Terrence. I think he's a brilliant guy, and he's a brilliant pianist. And one of the things I really loved about him is that he really understands this milieu between music and math, because music is mathematics. Yeah. As you just read off, sound, right? And music is the geometry we're experiencing with our ears. Yeah. Geometry is the music we're experiencing with our eyes. So this is the reference point. So I'm a big fan of Terrence's. I love Terrence. But I think that he led with necessarily probably not the best lead. I think what he did with the linchpin is very cool. And I remember looking at it 5 years ago when he came to my office to show me.
Something you said a little while before we started talking about Terrence, and I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. So you said light travels dimensions at an offset of 90 degrees. Is that correct?
Dimensions increase at offsets of 90 degrees, yes. So, okay. So you've got a line here. It's the first dimension. Yeah. So there's no depth here, right? So there's just one line right here. Dimension. So let's do an offset of 90 degrees. Then you have a y-axis. Yeah. Right? So then this is a flat plane. Now we have depth. Now we have a z-axis that comes across the center of that. Right? So then you end up in the fourth dimension. Then you've got another axis that's coming off of that z. Right. You keep adding another 90-degree offset, and you have all hyper dimensions.
You know, and the reason why I asked that, I was just like, well, this might be interesting. Let me ask Robert what he thinks about this. When you said 90 degrees, Robert, I thought about a corner. You know, the corner. I thought about the corner. So, and the dimension with the corner, it gets offset by the 90 degree into another dimension. And I thought about the term we use. We talked about language. Since I said it reminds me of a corner. The term we use when somebody dies, somebody who investigates the light body who's ascending or descending, is the coroner. So you have the corner, and then you have the coroner. And I'm like, do they pick these names purposely with metaphysical intention, or because how
corner?
You know what I'm saying, right? The corner,
I hear you.
The corner's 90 degrees, and then the person,
I like that.
Robert, or if I pass away, the coroner comes to investigate the death from the light body who's about to go to another dimension. So I'm like, do they do this shit purposely, or the universe is so amazing that it just works out this way?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above, and it's you.
What do you mean? Talk to me. Come on.
You are the creator of this.
Okay. All right.
You leave these things for yourself. You don't even realize it. This is that point where PD looks like, I'm mind fucking you right now. It's you.
Come on, man. Come on, Robert.
I'm dead serious, man.
I didn't know you was this funny, man. You a funny dude. I'm
trying to find a video for you to describe all of this.
Yeah.
And because there's actually a scene in Codex that I describe all of this, and it comes out. Oh, I found it. Lucky me. Lucky me. Okay, here we go. You ready for this?
Please. I'm ready. Please.
Okay. Now let's do this. Present. Share screen. Okay.
Okay, here we go. Come on. Oh yeah. Okay.
So, do you understand that?
Pretty much. Could you explain it though, so I can have an even more thorough understanding of what you just said?
Yeah, the way I could describe it is this. So you start with a line.
Yes.
and we measure a line by its length,
Mm-hmm.
right? In inches or whatever measurement you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to a X, it becomes not only an X axis, but now a Y axis as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you got a Y axis. So how do we measure that? We measure that with area,
Mm-hmm.
X times Y,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes the area measurement.
And then.
So then we pop out a third dimension and give it a depth.
Mm-hmm.
And the depth will then allow this to no longer be measured in area or length. You still have to take the information of the length.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to take that. And now you realize that for a cube, for example, the way you measure that is S cubed,
Mm-hmm.
right? So one side of the cube, you take that length and you cube that value for a cube's volume. So we measure that in volume.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how we measure dimension.
That's how you measure dimensions. Okay.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then the next dimension is going to be a hypercube,
Mm.
right? With that cube that's involuting inside itself.
So
But an easy way to think about it is it's just in motion.
Mm.
So the way the motion is working is, let's say I had let's say I have a cube and the cube is stationary.
Mm-hmm.
It's three-dimensional, but it's not moving. As soon as I start moving it around, that has now introduced the fourth dimension to it.
Hypercube.
And the fourth dimension is time.
Right.
We measure motion in time, just like we measure volume, right? When we've got the depth perception, we measure that volumetrically. We measure the area, and that's what we call our measurement. We measure the surface and call that area.
Mm-hmm.
We measure the length of the line and call that a line segment's length.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how we measure dimension.
Mm.
And each time it's going up another order of magnitude, or another order of exponentiality, right? So 6, the number 6 to the first power is 6. 6 to the second power is 36. That gives us the cube, right? Or the square, 360 degrees of a square, 360 degrees of a circle. You just add a 0 to it. 6 to the third power is 216. That's the sum of angles of the cube. 2,160 degrees is the sum of its angles.
What dimension would that be? The 6 to the cube?
That's the third dimension.
Third dimension, right.
Third dimension. And that's exactly the shape of carbon. Carbon has 6, 6, and 6.
666. The 666.
Right? So the 666 of carbon is the protons, the electrons, and the neutrons. It's a cube. It's literally in 2 dimensions, that becomes a hexagon. The cube in 2 dimensions, a hexagon.
So, Robert, real quick, I'm sorry. They say we're going from carbon beings to silicone-based beings.
Yeah.
So what mathematical, if carbon is 666, what was a silicone-based being be?
14. So you might remember, if you watch Joe Rogan's program, with Terrence, Terrence introduced something that was really kick-ass.
Yes.
On there. He introduced the periodic wave of elements.
Yeah.
Which the periodic wave of elements was actually introduced, not by Terrence, but it was introduced by Walter Russell. And he said that.
Russell, yeah.
Right. So this weekend, I'm going to speak at Walter Russell's University. I spoke there 2 years ago for their homecoming, and they had all kinds of government people show up. And so the place was packed, and they sold their tickets, and it becomes a moneymaker for them. So they asked me if I would come back and donate my time to speak at Walter Russell's University again. I spoke there 2 years ago and had a huge turnout. So I'm doing it again this weekend. So I'm flying to Virginia to the Shenandoah Mountains to do it. And this year they're expecting a bumper crowd because of Terrence Howard, because Terrence Howard reintroduced Walter Russell to the mass populace.
Oh yeah. Excellent.
Right. So what Walter did is he gave us something called the periodic elements, right? That were in this wave-shaped elementary proposition. Yeah. And I had done the same thing, and I actually have my own version of that as well. I called the periodic wave of elements. But it's also slightly different. You can find a video of it. I'll pull it up for you real quick.
Okay.
It's on YouTube, and you just look up Robert Edward Grant periodic elements, I think. Edward Grant periodic elements.
Everybody in the
Okay.
chat, make sure you hit the like button, family, while Robert looks for that. We got about 2,000
I found it.
in the chat. There we
I
go.
found it.
All right.
Okay. You see this? So this is the exact same thing, just shown as separations from one,
Right.
and how they create these separations and isotopes. And I posited that there would be 137 elements, not 118.
Right.
That were missing several.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all music.
Mm-hmm.
These are all keys to music. So I shared all of this stuff with, this was back in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
It's around the time I was meeting a lot with Terrence.
Okay. So let me ask you this, Robert. I gotta ask you this because you talk about music a lot. Is there something else you want to say about this, or is there something before I ask this question?
Yeah. So the thing I was going to show you is actually on here because it's related to your question.
I'm sorry.
You asked the question about why silicone.
Yeah.
And how that is significant, right? Well, I'm going to show you right here. Okay. So let me try to expand this a bit. All right. So you see hydrogen, carbon, and silicone. They're all in the carbon family.
Yeah.
All the yellow line is carbon, right? So carbon is in this octave. So this is one octave. This is, this is the first octave at hydrogen, the second octave, the third octave, right? The fourth octave and fifth octave, the sixth and seventh octave. So what you're looking at here is you've got carbon, and the next octave up of carbon is silicone. And what's the number of protons of silicone? It's 14. So we're going from 666 to 14, 14, 14.
Oh, that sounds interesting, man. Come on, man. That sounds interesting, Robert. Oh, man. Go ahead, explain that. Wow.
Because that's related to music.
Right.
It's absolutely related to music. And I published all the stuff related to this. It is also related to Osiris and the story of Osiris, who was cut into 14 parts.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a missing 1/14 that relates also to the zodiac and how we should have probably 14 zodiac signs, which include Orion and Ophiuchus. So this is part of taking on a 24-strand DNA matrix. I just did a post on my Instagram a couple days ago, just yesterday, in fact. And basically what I said was that I was going to work on a project, and I'll tell you what that project is. And I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, I guess you can. You can see it.
Yeah, we see
Okay.
it. Yeah.
So this is a guy named Anthony James, right? And Anthony makes all these geometric shapes that show up in hotel lobbies all around the world. And he's one of my followers. And so he reached out to me and invited me to spend the day with him yesterday. So I went there, and we're working on a project together. And look who liked the post. Eric Weinstein. See it right here?
Yeah.
It's really small, but you can see it. But yeah, Eric Weinstein, love this, right? So Eric is, one of my friends also. I try to be friends with everybody. It's like life's too short. So, and he's a genius of a guy. And so what we're doing now is we're going to do for a massive museum that you know very well. I'm sure you do. It's very famous. Like, think of the biggest museums in the United States. We're making a geometric structure for DNA that is based on one of my drawings. We're going to build it all. It's going to be like 25 feet high.
Wow.
And it's going to be epic. I'm going to find you the picture for this so you can see this.
Shit, man. Wow.
And that's what the silicone represents. Silicone represents us going into Homo Sanctus Luminous, the sacred light of humanity, of mankind. Wow. It's humanity's next evolution. And that's where the world is going. And we're basically commissioning this art is going to be in this massive, incredible museum, and I'll show you the picture of what we're building.
That's awesome, man.
So here we go. Share
awesome.
Screen. This is one of my drawings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Robert. And let me just say this real quick before you elaborate. I got to tell you, man, I seen this video because I do my research on my guests before they come on the show, come up with some questions. And, I like to, not just that, I like to get a vibe of their energy. I like to vibe with their energy. And I got to tell you, Robert, you had this interview, bro, and it was a past life regression. And it was,
yeah,
bro, that shit was, you know what it reminded me of? You know how Daryl, I think his name is Daryl Anka, channels Bashar. You was on some that shit. You was like, yes, I am the architect of the Great Pyramid. And I'm like, yo, I never heard this side of you, bro. Everybody got it. You was channeling. I forgot the female's name, but her channel. But it was amazing.
Yeah, Sarah Breastman Cosme. Yeah. I'm doing the second session with her tomorrow. In fact,
yo, Robert, that shit was. I love that. I love that. I love it. I loved it. I mean, all your interviews is good, but that was just different. To hear you like that in that voice, and I'm like, yo, what is it with you, the architect of the pyramid? I'm like, I gotta ask him about this shit. What do you mean? Like I said, there's so much I could talk to you about, man. Oh my god.
Honestly, wow. I don't even. That was a trip, man. That's what I gotta say. Right? The whole thing was a trip.
Yo, that was amazing. That was you dropped some gems in that. You dropped some
So this is the structure that we're gonna build in this massive museum.
Yeah.
Right. And like, how kick-ass is this going to be? Like, it's going to be super sick. And it's all going to be just like that drawing that I just showed you. And the way it's going to turn out is, let's see if we can find this.
But it's also going to be a QR code to the mind.
Oh, without a doubt, dude.
Like you said,
absolutely.
That's the QR code to the mind, man.
Yeah. So check this out. So this is.
Yeah.
I'm here at Anthony James Studio.
What a trip, right? So some DJ guy built one of these that I really liked, and so it's this one right here, and you'll see it in a moment in more detail. Look at this. This is the inside of that thing. So this is going to be a giant version of what you're looking at here. Is going to be this new structure that's going to go in this huge museum. That's based on my drawing.
Yes.
Look at that.
Whoa, look at this. I love
That's amazing. Like, imagine that being the universe.
That's exactly what the universe is like.
Like, imagine like a visual representation like that. Like, come on, everything's connected.
Everything is connected. And that's what I'm trying to show by doing this. The synthesis of music, art, mathematics, biology, chemistry, sculpture, everything is in our DNA.
Yeah.
It's where everything unites into one place.
So, all right, man, I'm very glad I have you on here to talk to you about this. Because you keep mentioning music, and you also mentioned the word manifestation. I know what you're into. I know what I'm into. The whole New Age movement. We're talking about manifesting our reality. And one day I said, you know what, Robert? I said, I don't know if I like that word manifestation. And I want to run it by you. I want to get your opinion. Robert. So since you're talking about music, some of the best music artists, Robert, say that music doesn't come from me. It comes through me. Michael Jackson, a couple of people, Pharrell Williams, some other names I forget. I'm got all types of stuff on my mind right now. But let's just say Michael Jackson, the biggest musicians that we have, that we known, pure rock star. People fainted by just looking at him. He said the music doesn't come from. Prince said it. Prince, and I forgot who else, but the music doesn't come from me, it comes through me.
Through me.
And it makes me think. So with the term manifestation, right, Robert? So we're saying, I manifested this. One of the things you said, and I agree with it, I heard Bashar say, and I mentioned Bashar earlier, higher self is the conceiver, brain is the receiver, consciousness is the perceiver. So if the brain is the receiver, consciousness is the perceiver, higher self is the conceiver, we don't really manifest and especially if we look at it as it comes through us, not from us. It's sort of like, it reminds me of, let's think about Robert, let's think about Christopher Columbus. And the indigenous people be like, Christopher Columbus discovered America. Nigga, America was already here. So it's like you didn't discover something that was already there. It was already there. You didn't discover it. It was already there. So we're like, I manifested it. But you know what, Robert? It was already there. We just couldn't see it with our limited light spectrum. So just like Columbus couldn't see America, you couldn't see a certain reality in your future because of your limited light spectrum with your eyes, but it was already there. And like you said, the brain is a receiver. It's already a receiver. Robert, check this out. Another point I want to make. The radio doesn't say, I created this song. The radio just tunes into the frequency and plays the song, but the radio doesn't create the song. The radio tunes into the broadcast tower that already has the song, and the radio transmits the song.
That's why I said that's exactly the point I was making, which is I don't believe I own any knowledge. Whether I bring it through, so in a world where nobody knows it, right? And then I like put it in a patent. That's why I don't assert any patents against anyone, because to me, no one can own any knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge is just inherent to the universe. Yes, someone brought it through a radio reception. So he got a clearer radio or something. He was able to interpolate. I think a lot of people get these signals, but they just don't have enough education to actually file it into something.
Right.
That's the issue. So let's say you're just like, you don't have any education, and so you don't even know what you're getting. It's like, what the hell is this thing? Right? I'm getting some crazy ass plans for something. I don't even know where to place it or how to even know that it's worthwhile, or if I'm just off my rocker.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the issue, and I know lots of people that have gotten the same ideas as me at the exact same moment I got them and filed patents on them at the exact same time too.
Yeah.
Because it's a radio.
You be like, you stole my idea. And they be like, no, I didn't. I didn't steal it.
Yeah. So it's like, so a better way to say it instead of I discovered something is I tuned into something.
Yeah.
But the fact is, if you were the first to tune into it, you still get recognized for tuning into it.
Yeah.
And whether it was there or not. So if something was lost through time, so I'm about to go to Turkey to go look at some new sites that have just been found that are supposed to be older than Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah.
And so this Netflix documentary has asked me to do this with them, with other people like Robert Schock and a guy named Matt LaCroix, and then another person, like Randall Carlson, like these types of people. Right. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go look to see if these sites that are not far from Göbekli Tepe are actually older than Göbekli Tepe.
Mm-hmm.
There's some belief that they might actually be 40,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked me to look at it as a polymath on the symbology and see if there's like some connection to mathematics in some of the symbology, like Templar crosses relate back to the prime number pattern, for example.
Right.
So, I'm going there. The fact is, whenever somebody says that they discover something, what they really mean is they found something that was lost.
Right.
It was lost to the knowledge of that particular time and space. Right. And so, do they deserve to be recognized for that? Sure, absolutely.
Definitely.
And we just semantically call that discovered or rediscovered.
Do you think we semantically call it manifesting? Or do you think that's like the premise of, like, that's what I'm trying to get at? Like, is it though? I'm like, did we really manifest it?
Whatever CERN is, don't you find it an interesting coincidence that whatever they go to look for, they find at CERN?
Yeah.
The physics place in Switzerland?
Yeah.
Because whatever you believe you're going to find is what you will find.
You will find.
Because if you think you can or you think you can't, you will be right. This is the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle in action.
In action. I love it. Let me ask you this. Now, you have a lot of emotional intelligence, and you got a little bit of criticism on Instagram. Let me just share the screen for talking at NASA now.
Mhm.
In the spiritual community, NASA's like the devil. They're like, whoa, they're bad guys. We don't like NASA. So they're like, whoa, how can Robert speak at NASA? Somebody said, so sad to realize your affiliation with the great deceivers. You wrote, I am in no way affiliated with where I am invited to speak. When I receive an invitation from someone who clearly disagrees with me, I assume they will listen to what I have to say. The world changes when opposers start listening to each other, not by fostering separation. Now, I completely agree with that, Robert. I completely agree with that. And I think that shows a high level of emotional intelligence in a world where anybody did in the internet world where anybody who disagrees with we argue, we troll them, we threaten their life, we try to harm their way of living. I mean, it's just so immature when we disagree with somebody at this point. But what I want to ask you, Robert, and this is what I'm curious about, with the level of emotional intelligence you have, being able to talk with NASA, even though you might disagree with them, because you know that fosters a new way of thinking. Would Robert Grant also talk, let's say if it was the 1940s or whenever it was, would you also talk if the Nazi party invited you? Would you also talk to the Nazi party? And the reason why I thought of that question is because I'm like, I've read somewhere that in Operation Paperclip, the Nazis scientists came over to NASA and they became NASA scientists. So I'm like, well, will Robert talk to the Nazis and have that same philosophy of, we just because we have a different opinion doesn't mean we can't talk? So I want to ask you, Robert, what's your thoughts on that? What I just asked you?
Yeah, in fact, I just did a post on this exact topic.
Indeed.
So I think it's very relevant
Yeah.
to what you're talking about. So I'll pull it up.
Excellent.
And thanks for asking these great questions, because
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I think it's really epic. So it should be up now. Oh, okay.
I see it.
So what I wrote was, I'm often criticized for accepting invitations to speak at events held at well-known locations and institutions with large numbers of detractors.
Mhm.
This includes Vatican last May, the United Nations last September, and most recently in NASA. I do not believe that we will change the world by conversing with only those who agree with us. To change the world, we must be the change we wish to see in the world. And what would I wish to see in the world? More opposers listening to each other, more sharing of perspectives and alternative viewpoints, more building of consensus and more teamwork, more listening, more empathy, and more love. Who wants the same? Ask yourself, do your thoughts, judgments, statements, and actions divide or unify? Do you love and accept or refuse to listen and judge first? Is your ultimate motivation fear or love-based? Many of late have asked me how it appears that I may be aging backwards. Well, here is the best answer I can give. Long periods of water fasting. I'm water fasting right now, so I'm not eating dinner tonight while I'm on this podcast with you. It actually helps me. Thank you.
Excellent.
5 consecutive days or more of absolutely consuming no food whatsoever per month. And I do it in a row. So I'll do like 1 week a month and I just do a water fast.
Yeah.
Intentionally replacing judgment in my life with acceptance and love.
Mhm.
That I believe that judgment makes us age, and I believe that food also makes us age. We don't need as much as we think, and we don't need to judge like we believe that we have to, because we think we're fighting against this world. When you finally realize that the world is you, and instead of fighting the world, you're seeking only to become aware of it and accept it and fall in love with it, because that is the game that we're living. That's the experience that we're in. So people ask me all the time where I will not give a speech, because I spoke at the Vatican 3 times, UN CEO Summit 2 times. The answer is met with a question. Where wouldn't I go to listen? Am I open and I am open and will listen to anyone who's willing to listen to me. This, I believe, is how we advance as a society. That said, whoever invites me had better prepare that what I say will not jive with their message or narrative at all. I'm not afraid to say in a room full of overlords that the world and humanity has no need for overlords anymore. Yes, I said exactly that at the United Nations. Or that God can be proven with mathematics and is emergent and not a separate entity from us, to a room full of Catholic archbishops.
Did you get some weird looks?
You know what's so funny? Today I was talking with Mayor Tom Tate of Anaheim.
Yeah.
And he's one of my close friends. And he's telling me that somehow he got the video, because I got millions of plays, of me speaking at the Vatican, proving God with math.
Okay.
And I said, how did you get it? He goes, I got it from the Catholic Church.
Wow.
They forwarded it.
Wow. Yeah.
So the truth is, would I go to speak to Hitler? Yes. If he's going to listen to me and I might be able to change how he sees the world, yes, I would. And that's exactly the point I'm trying to make. I'm not afraid of people that have darkness. I'm only afraid of people that believe they have none.
Whoa, that's a quote. That's a quote. I'm only afraid of people who think they have none. I'm not. Whoa, that's a quote, y'all. Oh shit, that's a gem. Oh,
because think about it. Those are the people that do the shit that is all messed up under the name of the public benefit and the greater good. And they believe that they're righteous. Every villain that ever existed never believed himself or herself a villain. They believe themselves a hero.
Wow.
It's Thanos. So if you're telling me, okay, let's take the same analogy. If I had the opportunity to talk to Thanos and convince him not to destroy the universe,
you would talk to him.
I'd freaking talk to him. If he's willing to listen, I'm going to talk to him.
Yeah. Oh man, this is a good conversation, Robert. This is a good one, y'all. Y'all sticking with us.
I'll tell you something. You guys are the first to hear this.
Yes, please.
I have refused. I have not accepted a speaking invitation at Davos.
What's that? I don't know what that is. What's that?
The WEF. The World Economic Forum.
Oh.
This is Klaus Schwab and the guy that looks like Dr. Evil, right? Like he's completely dresses like Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars, right? It's like the guy, like unbelievable. And they try to do all kinds of dystopian stuff. That's like mind-blowing stuff. And I have refused to speak at that conference because I know that it's like gonna be met with a lot of pushback.
Right.
But this year I decided, because I want to live this authentic principle, I will. So I'm going to speak at Davos this year in Switzerland. Now, I'm going to tell him what I actually think. I'm not going to sit here and just be like, oh yeah, let's all go and, release the next vaccine or release the next, pandemic. Because that's the wild shit that happens at this thing. I'm telling you, it's wild. And they do have a dystopian agenda, without a doubt. But we have to recognize that the darkness that we're seeing in the world around us is actually just a reflection or projection of the darkness within us. And what we need to do to learn to be able to ascend in our consciousness, because consciousness can only expand to the volume of the cage of your belief system, is to recognize the darkness within each of us and learn to accept it, and then we get control of it. It's when we're not aware of it that it takes over our lives and you end up with Hitlers in the world. The best thing you can do is at least try to reason and recognize that what you're seeing on the outside of you is not separate from you at all, and it is actually a universal projection of what's inside of you.
Robert, so let me ask you this.
And by the way, I do call the WEF the WTF. And that's probably still on the judgment side of things.
Why do you call it WTF? Because
it's what the fuck. If you haven't researched this thing, you got to go do it. And you know what? I think I'm going to throw that into my talk at the WEF.
You said, yo, you a funny dude. They didn't tell me you was this funny. You said, because it's what the fuck? Yo. Oh,
no, man. I promise you that. I will throw that in my speech at WEF. And I'm going to say, I'm so pleased and honored to be here at the WTF. I'm going to do this. I'm so going to do it. And the funny thing is, I did it at the Vatican. I threw out kind of a joke similar to that. I did it also at United Nations, and I got invited back the next year.
Wow. And you got invited back.
They let me into the Vatican library, bro. I've got pictures of it. I can show you the whole thing. It's like epic. And the whole thing was encrypted with hermetic wisdom. Like the Pope didn't even know. The polymaths in the time of Da Vinci made that whole thing. And it was Pope Innocent, the 14th, which the Borgia Pope, who was literally like a philanderer, and they encrypted the whole Vatican library with like all of this hermetic wisdom that nobody knew until I walked in there. I was like, oh my gosh, this is all hermetic wisdom here. Holy crap. Even the shape of the room is like a brain. And there's a row of columns, 7 columns that represent the chakras, that represent also the corpus callosum of the brain. And one side of the room is faith, and the other side of the room is culture. And you have to translate. The translation between those two, faith and culture, are the prophets and polymaths. So they had Pythagoras on one of the pillars. They had Abraham on one. They had Adam on another. They had Hermes Trismegistus on another. They didn't even know the symbolism of what they had. So I'm telling you right now, it's like we all have a bias of being either a hero or a villain. Now, if you want to learn about this, I'll show you where to find it. And it's something I wrote, and you quoted from it right away, the 24 precepts of universal mind. And so since we started there, let me end there. Okay? Because I think this is very fundamental to what you're actually trying to get across. And so you got so many people on this. I'm going to, take you through this. Wow. My website just got redone today by my guy that does it. And I'm looking more and more like Dr. Strange with all this stuff.
Oh, man.
Epic. Okay, cool. I dig it. Okay. So 24. So if you just go to the search and find 24 and find 24 precepts of universal mind. Okay. So very early in the morning on March 7th, 2024, I awakened from a dream. I looked at the time and noticed it was 1:37 a.m. That's a synchronicity timestamp for me.
Yeah.
While I often wake to 1:37 a.m., this time was different. I felt as though I had just experienced a profound dream state. And I grabbed my iPhone and started writing down what I could remember. I had a stream of consciousness. And this is what came out. Number 1, the universe is mental. Realize that you live in a U inverse of your own creation as an interconceived notional experience and chosen soul journey for a dimensionally limited avatar, self, thoroughly designed by your multidimensional and omniscient higher self. So that means that you have a higher self and you have a lower self. The higher self is what we would call like a God concept. And the lower self is this avatar you've created in this game. And the avatar has certain weaknesses and foibles and mistakes and everything, just like every hero in a hero's journey game or story has to have weaknesses that they have to learn how to overcome. They're not perfect. It would be no fun to play a game where you are omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Poker in that scenario would suck. I would know the hand you're going to be dealt. You would know the one I'm going to be dealt. I would know what you're going to do before you did it. It's not a fun game. The only one that makes sense is you would create an avatar that's dimensionally limited, and that the aim of the game would be as you hit certain milestones in the game, you would start to remember your powers. And that's the most fun of a superhero movie. The point when the superhero starts realizing that he's a superhero and he can fly and he's got superhuman strength. He's got all these different things. Or if he was bit by a spider, he can basically climb walls. Your conscious awareness informs your mirror separation of conscious, persona, or mask, and unconscious mind experience, the U inverse. You are the playwright, the director, the producer, the actor on your life stage play, and all the world is a stage. Your higher self has chosen to participate in a multiplayer spiritual life simulation, a game in which the participant is a dimensionally limited avatar. The purpose of the game construct is to expand awareness of yourself by dividing awareness into both conscious and unconscious minds, uniquely allowing the one source creator to divide itself into the many for the experience of observing itself through greater and greater variation of angular degrees of perception and unique conditioning biases, both nature and nurture. Ultimately, this multifunctional experience enables increasing empathy and wisdom experienced by the higher self for infinite circumstances and scenarios, thus increasing the knowledge database of space-time memory, the cumulative collection of all biased observational emotional responses of all divisions of source creation. In this construct, you'll be born with the self-bias as a hero. From the moment awareness crystallizes into your persona, hero bias through a series of experiences, including shame, blame, and vulnerability as uncomfortable and undesirable perceptions that ultimately mold and shape your self-identity, as well as your absorbed villain characteristics formed as a direct result of hero identity and affiliation. Everyone believes they're a hero. The backdrop of the spiritual life simulation is duality, the experience introducing judgment, resulting in the suffering as a result of scarcity in time, energy, and resources, enmity and power, while introducing an illusory concept of the eternal battle between reflected light and its absorbed darkness, and the perception that devolution is the tendency of energetic bias that we call entropy. In this construct, every hero will reflexively consider their opposers as villains. Likewise, even villains consider themselves heroes. The self-concept of hero and villain alike are merely degrees of imbalance and derive from both the heroes and the villains' inability to perceive dark aspects within their shadows and subconscious, and instead severely repress these hidden aspects, assigning these characteristics to their villain counterpart, as both will inevitably perceive the other as a villain when in fact both and neither are either heroes or villains, but rather unintegrated personalities capable of both dark judgments and therefore dark actions. Justifying their means by the end results, and the motive behind such actions is exclusively self-interest disguised as a collective need and benefit. All avatars are imbued with both talents and powers, as well as seeming character flaws, which flaws make the gameplay more realistic. The aim of the game is to transcend duality, remember and tap into the higher consciousness, integrate the shadow awareness, and attain the philosopher's stone of hemisynchronization of the heart-brain consciousness, thus merging the conscious and unconscious minds into one whole, the superconscious mind. The hero and villain co-depend on each other in order to define the boundary of their self-perception. In short, the villain begins where the hero ends and vice versa.
Oh, yeah.
In this world, we learn through opposites.
Yes. Polarity.
And that's what this is, right?
Yeah.
Choose to express love over the desire for the collection of one or many objective truths or facts that prove your point of making you right in the eyes of others. Remember, ultimately, there are no others truly separate from you in your universe. Always remember that what you perceive as a fact is merely a facet of a larger prism of a more holistic truth. The only objective truth is the love that underlies it all. Genuinely fall in love with the world as it is and without condition. Fall completely in love with yourself. Curtail persistently negative self-narratives and self-deprecating speech. Never forget that what you voice will eventually be made manifest as an effective cause.
Yeah, this is great. This is good stuff, Robert. This is great stuff. This is great stuff.
Be the change you wish to see in the world, and recognize this aspect of learning through opposites, right, is literally the most confusing part of this game experience.
Yeah.
Right? It's literally the hardest part. You know, there's no mistakes in this game. Know that you'll continue to experience the same life lessons until you have ceased the negative judgment of the opposite learning. Right? Be aware that the universe we learn, in this universe, we learn precepts through experiencing opposites. If you are here to learn unconditional love, then your recurrent life theme will be conditional love and betrayal until you no longer judge negatively conditional love and betrayal. Know and repeat back to yourself daily that you are perfect, complete, and beautiful just as you are. Earth can be either a heavenly paradise or a hellish escape room. The choice is ours. There will be no escaping Earth. There is only the transcendence of the past Earth experience. And this only when you genuinely fall in love with the entire experience and without condition.
Yeah. Right. It's great stuff. This is great stuff. Now, Robert, I absolutely, let me say this. I absolutely love when you talk about the idea, and you came up with this term, the U inverse. Instead of universe, you came up with the word U inverse. And it's it's a reflection of our own creation. But I want to ask you once again, your opinion, because I definitely respect your opinion. I'm wondering if you talk a lot about Hermes, Tahuti, Thoth, many different names we know him as, and we talk about the idea of as above, so below. And many people just know the axiom as above, so below. They don't think about the rest of it. They just think about as above, so below. Now, as above, so below, Robert, we're thinking about the way we're trained and the way with our language, the English language, we think about cause and effect. As above, the cause, so below, the effect. Or as above, the action, so below, the reaction. We think action, reaction, cause and effect. And if we're thinking like that, Robert, we're still thinking external. But the way you're talking about it, we're thinking internally. You inverse. It's coming from outside in. So I'm wondering, like Robert, I'm like, if I'm looking at I'm reading the laws of Hermes and all of this stuff, and I'm like, did we mistranslate this somewhere? Everybody's focused on the as above, so below, but that still teaches us about something external. Now people worshiping astrology. Now people worshiping anything outside of them when it all comes from inside. So I want to ask you, do you think it should be, or what do you think about the idea of instead of as above, so below, as below, so below, as below, so above? Like, do you think as below, so above makes more sense than as above, so below, Robert, based on what I just said?
Actually, there are hermetic texts that say exactly that. It says as above, so below, and so below, as above.
No. Everybody forgets the rest of that part. Everybody just it says as within, so everybody just talks about the as above, so below. That's why I asked that, because
As within, so without. I mean, yes, it's a mirror reflection. You can't have I think you're thinking about it as above being superior to being below.
I just think about it as
That's
being
like
external.
some people will think that, we often refer to the polarity of the feminine as negative. Well, it could easily be positive and masculine just becomes negative. It's just opposition.
Mm-hmm.
There's no superiority between the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
But we're so used to thinking of it in terms of superior position, like we're on high ground and high ground wins the game, right? I think it is exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It is true that it is, so below as above. Mm-hmm. That is correct. Mm-hmm. That is not, there's nothing about that that's not correct. Mm-hmm. It's completely correct. Mm-hmm. And this is because every action must have an equal opposite reaction. We're talking about the law of correspondence and hermetic principle. Mm-hmm. Right. And my 24 precepts of universal mind are just giving more context to actually day-to-day living, but it's all derivation of the 7 hermetic principles, which I didn't even realize until just now. It's like 24/7. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like 24 precepts of universal mind is like the 24 hours in a day and 7 days a week is the 7 principles of hermeticism. See, these are all things that you start finding. It's like coroner versus corner.
Yeah.
That's because we live in a mental universe that we are co-creating moment by moment. And we find these synchronicities that we leave through ourselves through time space, which there's really only the eternal now. And once you get into higher dimension, then you start to tap into the different time space versions of you in the past and in the future that are actually happening simultaneous to now.
Yeah, I heard you say it's all accessible through our DNA, past, present, and future, huh?
Correct.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It's all in our DNA.
Let me ask you this while we wind down the show, Robert. Let me ask you this. So, and I want to read this. Okay, so because we talk about a lot about love, and when we refer to source or God or the universe, we always talk about love being the primary thing the universe is created out of. And I want to read you this. This is something that's spreading on the internet. I want to give a shout out to I found this on Instagram, Lil Tunchi. I want to give people that call Lil Tunchi. I believe that's Ashanti's sister, or the singer Ashanti's sister. And I want to give a shout out because this is where I found this out from.
Sister Shanti.
Yeah, the post says, according to the Scale of Emotions Research Project, they gathered 25,000 subjects, Robert, and they took instruments to measure the frequencies leaving the human body. Their instruments were so sophisticated, they were able to isolate emotions, and the most powerful emotion they detected was, guess what, Robert? Authenticity.
Love.
No.
Authenticity. Oh, cool. Mm-hmm.
So their findings said that authenticity, according to, and I got to ask you your opinion, according to this research, authenticity is 4,000 times more powerful than love. So I want to ask you your opinion. And this is you can research the Scale of Emotions Research Project. Now I
Okay, I
don't
will
know.
look it up.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know exactly how accurate this is, but I said I got to bring this up to somebody. But let's say this is true, Robert. Being authentic versus being, based on that, I want to ask you about being authentic versus being what somebody may call a positive role model, right? Somebody
Yeah.
may say, Robert, you're a positive role model. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. You cursed a few times, Robert, tonight. You shouldn't have done that, Robert. Oh shit, you did it again, Robert. So what? But that may be the authentic Robert Edward
No,
Grant,
but I was being authentically me.
right? No, so that's what I'm saying. And that's what
And I
appeals.
don't, by the way, I don't profess to be a role model, and I don't profess to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. I believe that I know I got shit. I know what my issues are, right? I could go through a whole list of those things, but I don't think you guys are probably that interested in it. But it's when you become aware of these things, right? I just watched this video yesterday. It was so funny. I've been posting some of them for some of you that follow me.
Yeah.
Like I've been following this stuff on Tauruses, and this guy was like walking down the street. He's like a gangster style. And he's like, yo, I'm this guy with a soft heart, but you know what? If you basically show me your disloyalty and you hurt me, I'm going to cut you out of my life type of thing. It's like, that is like 100% Taurus.
Right.
Like literally there's just like a switch that Taurus has. It's like, okay, yeah, that's over now.
Yeah.
Right? It's unbelievable. And this is not a good thing. There's nothing good about that. Yeah. But you know, one of those is I also believe in being radically authentic. Mm-hmm. When I started sharing stuff on social media, it wasn't so I would get followers. I was doing it because I felt the need to be radically authentic. And I felt the need to share for my own benefit, that somehow sharing would teach me more of the principles of what I was trying to make sense of. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden people just started following it. It's like it blew up. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect it at all. I literally didn't.
Before the show started, I was like, you became a rock star. I told you. I was like, and you was different from what Robert, you was different from what we seen in this, if you want to call it spiritual new age community, you had a different flavor to you. So we was like, ooh, that dude, wow, that's different. So yeah, I totally get it. Definitely.
But it's when we find our radical authenticity, and we have the courage to live that radical authenticity, I can understand why that frequency becomes a powerful one, because I'll explain this. This is really, really important.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in the spiritual community, they get in this mode where they're in the early stages of their spirituality, but they already think they've arrived. It's pretty funny, right? It's like my philosophy. If you go on my webpage, if you go on my Instagram page, it says one quote: "The more I learn, the less I actually know." Mm-hmm. Right. And that's what I truly believe. So every day I want to listen to more people and get more perspective, because that's actually, I realize that it's a U-inverse. Every experience I have, every person I meet can be a divine manifestation if I'm open to it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's two types of people in the world: people that believe in miracles and those that don't at all. And the people that don't at all believe in miracles should not be surprised when they never experience a miracle. Mm-hmm. Because what you think you can and what you think you can't will be correct. Right? It's exactly what I've been saying. Mm-hmm. It is a law of the universe that they will not be able to experience miracles. So they'll never experience it. So don't even waste your time talking to someone about miracles that just doesn't believe in miracles. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen. I experience miracles every freaking day. Multiple times a day. And as you're going through your path, if you're not, then you will start going more and more in that direction. And the key is non-judgment and love.
Non-judgment and
replacing judgment with love. That's exactly the key. And once you start living that life, then you move into a 5-dimensional experience where everything is magic, everything is synchronistic. You've got signs everywhere telling you everything. It's unbelievable, and it's so beautiful. And I can't, unless you live it and you walk it in my shoes or experience it for yourself, you cannot know what I'm talking about. But I'm telling you, it's real. Mm-hmm. And so the point is that we all tend to get in this mode in the early stages of our awakening where we start to hate ourselves, because we realize that all the facts we thought we were collecting were all just facets, and they're all self-interested. Oh, I'm an asshole. Oh my God. I'm surrounded by assholes because I'm the asshole. So then people want to get rid of their personas. And they're like, oh, I got to change my name. I'm not Robert Edward Grant anymore. I'm one divine now.
Wow.
Or I'm like, I'm so-and-so, Robert Edward Light. I'm going to change my last name because it's got too much karma baggage with it, right?
Oh man.
So I'm going to get rid of my persona because I don't like my persona,
yo. Oh my God.
right? So, but actually, the true individuation path, it's not get rid of your individuality.
Yeah.
It's to celebrate it. Celebrate your individuality and integrate your shadow. Become aware of your shadow. Don't get rid of your individuality. You're not a Borg. You don't have to all of a sudden be a Karl Marx follower, right? It's like, oh, I'm bad. And all the people that sit there and say they love them some communism are the ones that really love them some money. Because you know what? I've been to China, and I can tell you this much right now. I've never met anybody who's as good at entrepreneurship just naturally as Chinese people, and they come from communism, okay?
Wow.
In fact, they love them some money so much they had to restrict it and make it not allowed for everybody to make money.
Wow.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's what happens. Our repressions become our realities. If you love you, so it's like when I was Mormon, I used to laugh about Mormonism because I'm like, okay,
you was a Mormon?
church always talk. I used to be. Yeah, I was only in for like 10 years.
Okay.
but the truth is what they do. They judge them really negatively. They judge sex out of wedlock and money. Now, because you shouldn't want money. The love of money is evil. That's a statement they say all the time. So I kind of laughed about Mormonism, and all the people that were ex-Mormons or are currently Mormons are going to laugh when I say this, because the fact is, what is it that they created that they made allowable, right? And what is it that ended up getting manifested related to money as well? The two things that took off hugely in Utah were polygamy. So I'm going to have sex with as many women as I want in wedlock, right? And now Mormons are not polygamist anymore. That was an offshoot of the Mormon church. They made it illegal when Utah became a state. So yes, I know all of that. But the fact is, it was part of the church. The other thing that was part of the church is that became a part of the church that's not an official part of the church, but it's almost official. It's like a multi-level marketing. Multi-level marketing took off like crazy. And I used to have people show up at my doorstep when I lived in Utah for a couple of years, and they'd knock on there and say, don't you want a boat? And I'm like imagining, like, what does this guy think? He's like that guy on that, 2010 video. I'm on a boat, right? And they're always talking about getting boats. And so you can sell Amway and get a boat. The reason why this became such a pernicious form of the culture of Mormonism was because they judged it so much that it shows up in these other forms. Countries that love them some money feel like, I need to repress this. It's going to get out of control. So I'm going to create communism now, damn it. And no one's going to be allowed to spend money. And everyone's going to be equal, but some will be more equal than others. Right? This is the fact of how we perceive our world around us. We don't need to get rid of our egos.
Right.
Our egos just need to be integrated with the shadows, and we need to become aware of the dark aspects of our shadow.
Right.
And stop judging ourselves, and therefore also stop judging others. As soon as you stop judging yourself, that's when the world starts to get less judgment from you, and then you stop experiencing the same experiences on loop. And this is the one thing I wish I could just get in everyone's mind. Your individuality is your individuation. It is to be celebrated. Your authenticity. You have a reason for being here. The one divided itself into many different unique perspectives with your list of conditioning biases, your list of flaws, your list of weaknesses and everything, so that it could populate its knowledge database of empathy and love. And see the world through your unique eyes of perspective, which will never be existing again and never have existed before. Each of us are serving a purpose, and there's no mistakes in this world. There's only the path that we've chosen to take, and that is already set. And it's beautiful when we allow ourselves to see it for what it actually is. So don't get rid of your personality. You don't need to change your name for shit.
Right.
You basically keep who you are and be radically authentic to who you are
Mm.
and own it without any shame. It's not sin that makes the world a difficult place. It's the shame that makes the world a difficult place. People don't live in wars because people hate each other as much as people hate themselves.
Mm. Mm.
And we have a pandemic of self-loathing going on around planet Earth right now. That needs to stop. In fact, people hate themselves so much that they even contemplate the idea of maybe we should just get rid of all human beings because we are a scourge to planet Earth.
Wow.
We're destroyed. The Earth would be a more beautiful place if none of us existed, or maybe if all of them didn't exist, then I would be the one keeping this Earth and tending the garden beautifully, and I could just get rid of all the other people. That sounds a lot like Thanos. It's like you get to a degree of collective narcissism, which is the extreme form of self-loathing,
Right.
as
Right.
a species.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the shit that's going on now. See Greta Thunberg for details.
Mm. Some good stuff, Robert. Now, Robert, am I correct? You are a former CEO of a pharmaceutical company, right?
Yep.
All right. I want to ask you because I listen to Bruce Lipton, and he talks about like the placebo effect and prescription drugs, and you know, sometimes they could give some patient a placebo and it works just as good as the prescription drug based on the patient's beliefs. And he talks about how important the belief is in healing yourself or whatever. And he talks a lot. He has a book and a video about the biology of belief. What I want to ask you is that do you think as far as doctors, they got to study a lot. They got to go to school for a lot of years. They got to study a lot. Do you think if a lot of this is based on belief, Robert, do you think when we look at the motivational speakers, they increase a person's belief a lot based on how they speak? You could do it. You could do it. Get up. Take this pill. Da, da, da. Do you think doctors should have to study the techniques of motivational speakers, and that would increase their effectiveness in healing? Do you think motivational speaking should be one of the courses the doctors study in terms of being a doctor, because you got to motivate that patient when they take that pill, and that would highly increase the effectiveness of whatever they're giving the patient? What do you think about that, Robert?
Okay, well, I tell you what, I experienced this recently. One of my companies was in a clinical trial for headaches and migraines, and it ended up failing the clinical trial because the placebo arm did so well. And the reason why the placebo arm did so well is because there's a perverse incentive. The patient's getting paid for participation in trials if they had headaches. So there was advertisements to get people to enroll in the trial, and they get paid like $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000. So it becomes a perverse incentive because people show up and say, "Oh yeah, I've got a headache. I got a headache. Treat me now." And so then they get a saline solution because they're part of a placebo arm of the study. And then they come back and say, "Oh, my headaches are gone." Well, the greatest drug of all time ever in the world is placebo.
Mm-hmm.
It is very difficult for drugs with active ingredients to beat placebo. And what is that phenomenon caused by? It's the biology of belief.
Yeah.
It's not seeing as believing, but it's believing as seeing.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I do think that there needs to be, I don't know that we're going to have like an evangelical, like Tony Robbins going to be a doctor. And I'm not sure that I would want that necessarily, It would be kind of entertaining, I think. It's like, he's got some bad news to deliver. It's like, you know what? You got stage 4 cancer. Right? But you know what?
I love this.
Right. I mean, I think there's got to be some sort of happy medium there. But I do fundamentally believe that belief determines outcome more than anything else.
Yeah.
I even, just to your point, on my 24 precepts of universal mind, in one of them, I talked about having a regimen of like daily exercise and that type of stuff. And I said, it's less important what you choose to do, and more important that you choose to do it. And that you understand that believing is seeing and not the other way around. What you do is less important than believing that it can work for you. Whatever you're doing, if you don't believe it can work, don't do it.
Don't do it. Okay. Don't do it.
Just don't do it. Right? It'll cause you more heartache and pain than what it's just not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So yeah.
So like I said, we winding down. So I want to ask you, finish up these last couple of questions before we get out of here, Robert. Once again, we've been over 2 hours, and I want to thank you so much. I want to thank you so much, brother, because I know you just did a podcast before this. I know you're tired, so I really appreciate it. This has been such an energetic podcast, though, and it's been wonderful. Robert, we use light as a food source. The energy we produce, Robert, they say 1/3 of it comes from food. 2/3 of it comes directly from light, according to what I read. So we use light as a food source. What I want to ask you though is, if we use light as a food source, what does light use as a food source from us? We use light as a food source, but light, if we have this relation, you got a relationship with a woman, you use her for, she use you for something. We use light as a food source. What does the light use? What does light get from us as a food source? Because I don't want to be in a using relationship, Robert. I want us both to get something out the relationship. What does light use us for as a food source, Robert?
We are light. We are light. I mean, our entire body, you could say that matter is the suspension of light caught between the centripetal force of gravity and the centrifugal force of radiation. Matter is light. So we are light. So it's not just that light is, coming one direction, it's going the other direction. We think that darkness is the absence of light. People say this to me all the time. Darkness is the absence of light. I turn off my light in here. My office is dark right now. It'll be dark in here. But is it really dark? The answer is no.
No.
Because all the molecules in the room, in the air, in fact, the nitrogen, the composition, the oxygen that's in the room, those are all emitting frequencies of light.
You talked about with a spectral analysis. You talked about being
That's right.
Yeah, you talked about
so
that.
There's a spectral reflection and there's a spectral absorption.
Yeah.
The only thing that happens when I turn on the light is what's already in the room is going to reflect with higher magnitude. So it increases the amplitude of reflection and increases the amplitude of absorption in the room that's already there. So the darkness and the light was already there. We just increased its reflection and absorption. That's the nature of physics. So darkness is not the absence of light. Rather, darkness is the opposite condition of light's reflection. It's the absorption of light's reflection. So it's a spectral analysis. So that means, in that context, the light cannot exist without the dark. I buy the diamond. I want to put its beautiful, brilliant facets on display. I put it in front of the darkest, blackest, Vanta black, if I can find it, velvet cloth, because that's going to allow the light to shine its brightest. It's through the contrast that the light becomes even more beautiful. So what we're giving back to the light is exactly what the light needs.
Right.
It's the dark.
Right.
It needs the dark, and it also needs more light. And there's reflection of light going back and forth. So you could say that we're all just vibrations of light frequencies. Light doesn't actually travel.
Yeah.
So if there's an earthquake in Japan, like there was in 2011, and the earthquake, is spreading a tidal wave that the tidal wave pushes all the way to the shores of California. And it did. We had huge waves in California after the big earthquake in Fukushima. So I asked myself the question, well, are the water molecules and the fish and everything that were in Japan now going to be contaminated here in California? Because do some of those water molecules actually make it out to here?
Mm.
That's a good question.
Very good question.
And the truth is, the answer is no, because it's no different than a football stadium. When I'm in a football stadium and they have a wave,
Mm-hmm.
and the energy of the wave comes through me, I stand up and then I sit down.
That's
There's
what
on excitation and off excitation.
on off, on off, on off, on off.
I'm the photon.
Yeah.
So what's traveling? Is it the wave that's traveling, or is it the photon? The photon is just a reflection of light. It's the wave perturbation that's traveling. It's the energetic transfer that's happening that's traveling. The photon is not moving. It just goes up and down, just like the water molecule in Japan when the tidal wave passes through it.
Whoa.
So that means that my hand, as I move it like this, is actually like in another illusion, right? It's like an LED screen. It's like the ping pong ball going across the screen and pong on the LED screen. Are the photons actually moving? No, they're just reflecting in the next cubic waveform of space-time. That's how the wave perturbation works with electromagnetism.
Wow.
So as I move my hand, that means that I'm recreating my hand frame by frame by frame by frame. As I'm moving it in a new reflection of a series of photons that are associated with this zone of space-time.
Yeah, that's deep.
If you haven't done Apple Vision Pro yet, try it out, because it will teach you exactly where this is going and start to think, wait a minute, in 5 years, how advanced is this going to be? It's almost indistinguishable from reality right now. Imagine where it's going to be in 5 years.
Yeah.
Indistinguishable from reality. It'll probably be something like 12K display.
You could imagine, yeah.
And it's going to look more real than real.
Hey, Mark Zuckerberg and Meta, they just announced Orion.
Yeah, and they named it after my product. They named it Orion. Another reason why I know we're in a simulation, right?
Yeah.
I've been discovering Orion correlations all over the world. They're showing up all over the world right now. I just did a podcast about them with Aaron Abke. And I can tell you, it's like we're living in a trippy ass simulation, and it's fun.
Yeah.
The thing is when you're in a simulation and you don't know that it's a simulation, it starts to feel like hell pretty quick.
Oh man.
Once you realize you're in a simulation and it's a game and you can learn how to play the game, now that ascribes meaning to the simulation. It's like math. You know, math learned in school sucked for many people because they kind of figured that, you know, math without meaning is just painful. Math without meaning is just information, but math with meaning can become divine communication. And that's what's happening now. Thousands and thousands of people are learning math. I'm a teacher of that math among many, many now. And people, tens of thousands of people have taken my courses, more than go to universities for math right now. And the thing that's different, I'm writing a new book right now. And it's called The Mathematical Proof for God. And it's going to be with HarperCollins. And the difference is they now understand that there's divine meaning behind the math.
Yeah. Robert, let me ask you this real quick. Do you know when it's a simulation, does that take away your empathy? Because you're like, this shit is fake. You see somebody suffering. Like, you know how, like, and let me use somebody famous for an example. A lot of people want DJ Khaled to talk about what's happening in Palestine. So they're like, you're a sellout, you're this, you're that. And he's not talking about it. He's continuing to live his life. And people are like baffled about this dude is from over there. Why the hell kids are down? Why the hell isn't he talking about what's going over there? And I don't know if that's a good or a bad example. But my point is, do you think that learning this information, tapping into this information, you're like, man, I shouldn't get involved in every bad thing that goes on because this is a part of the matrix. This is a part of the simulation. I got to fulfill my destiny and do what I got to do.
Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing to remember.
Yeah. Talk to me, Robert.
It's like the question being that does it make sense, right? Like if you're DJ Khaled, should you say something? Or if you live in a simulation, you realize you're in a simulation, why have empathy for any of it? Why not just be callous?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what.
If someone is callous and they've gotten to the point where they learn that they're in the simulation, then they've missed the entire freaking point of the
Point of
simulation.
the simulation, right? Okay.
Because the entire point of the simulation is to learn empathy for every possible perspective. That means that you have to learn and feel with the greatest of depths exactly what others are going through. That's the purpose of life. We're here. The only thing that's real in the Matrix simulation is what we feel.
You teaching tonight, Robert? All right. I'm loving this. Go ahead.
That's the reason we're here, is to feel the emotions. That's the whole purpose of the game. And out of that, to learn how to love and be loved. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that song by Nat King Cole, Nature Boy. Do you guys know this?
Don't play, Robert. I don't want YouTube to strike me down.
No. Don't worry. I'm not gonna.
YouTube. They be like,
here, bro.
No.
No. I'm not gonna play the song. I'm
Okay.
gonna just read the lyrics to you,
Okay.
because it is absolutely a hero's journey.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Nature Boy lyrics. Okay, here it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm waxing philosophical now. You got me, 4 hours. I've done like 4 podcasts a day.
I'm sorry, man. Oh, we can't
That's
see.
okay.
It's so good, man. I swear, it's so good.
Okay, so here we go. All right. There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy.
Mm-hmm.
They say he wandered very far over land and sea.
Mm-hmm.
A little shy and sad of eye, but very wise was he.
Mm-hmm.
And then one magic day, he passed my way. And while we spoken of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return.
Mm.
And then one magic day, he passed my way. And while we spoken of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return.
Yeah. Wow.
That's the reason we're here. We complicate it so much with other stuff. Learn to feel all of your experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to fall in love with this place just as it is.
Mm-hmm.
See the miracles that are all around you. Stop seeking perfection and rather see the perfection inside the imperfection.
Yeah.
Fall in love with all of it and understand that you have darkness within you, so there's no need to judge it outside of you.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to love and be loved. That's it.
Robert, on that note, I don't want to keep you too much longer, brother. I really appreciate this interview. Really appreciate your time. I mean, amazing. I had a magnificent time, man. I know you had a lot of podcast interviews today, and I appreciate you coming on here tonight to I guess the end of your night. Let the people know who's watching. We got about 2,000 people. About 2,000 people still tuned in. Let them know if they're interested in your books, your courses, anything you got going on, Robert, how they could contact you.
So you can find my work on like Instagram, Robert Edward Grant. You can find me on YouTube, also under the same name. You can find my books and courses on my website, robertedwardgrant.com. And you can find like 24 precepts and tons. I mean, you could go down a big rabbit hole on my stuff, just on YouTube, in fact. But also I've written books, Philomath and Polymath. I have a new one coming out called Philosopher. My art books have all been published. I published 8 books in the last 2 years.
Wow.
I wrote a book, 8 books in the last 4 years, excuse me. Yeah. I've you can read my patents and stuff. You can find it all on my website. And, I love life, and I enjoy every single moment of it. And, I don't leave anything on the table in love or in life. Mm-hmm. So I want to experience all of it and feel all of it and be radically authentic. And I thank you for taking the time with me and giving me the opportunity to be radically authentic here tonight.
Indeed. No, I truly appreciate it. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Robert Edward Grant, thank you for tuning in. We'd love to get you on here again sometime in the near future, my brother. Keep doing what you're doing.
Happy to do it.
Thank you. Congratulations on all your success. With that being said, I'll see you next time, Robert.
I'll see you soon. Thanks so much.
All right. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Peace, family. I'll see you next time. Peace.